Chapter 1. The Seed is Strong. The Seed is Strong. John Aaron. Konohagakure no Sato. The Konoha Hospital, October 25th, Naruto, age 6. Not for the first time did the Sandaime Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen wondered what did it mean to be the Hokage. Both his senseis and predecessors, the Nidaime Hokage, Senju Tobirama, and his brother, the Shodai Hokage, Senju Hashirama, had told him many times that treating his fellow villagers, his fellow shinobi of the leaf, all as a part of his own family, as a part of his own body, that is what it means to be the Hokage. Hashirama-sama, an idealist in heart, had always dreamed that one day, all shinobi, regardless of the country, clan, or village they hailed from, would come together and cooperate, thus erasing the hatred of the Warring States period. To coexist was his dream, much to the dismay of his more pragmatic younger brother, who would place Konoha and its benefit above everything else, discarding Shodai's idealism of such a notion as a mere fantasy. A fantasy that, if it ever became a reality, would be an illusion at best. For that, after Hashirama's death, but even before, Tobirama-sensei tried to instill a more realistic approach into his students. Hiruzen had tried to justify this every time he had to send his ninjas to the suicide missions. When he sent them to war, knowing that some of them might never come back. Those were the moments when he wondered what it truly means to be the Hokage, and if he was worthy of wearing the mantle of the third. Sitting on the hospital bed, looking at the sleeping form of the 6-year-old Namikaze Naruto, Hiruzen wondered how many of his fellow villagers actually embodied, or at the very least, believed in the ideal on which he tried to live by. It didn't come out as a surprise to him to hear about the villagers' resentment towards Naruto after someone had leaked his status as a Jinchuriki to the public. He reasoned that as long as there was no physical abuse from the adults, Naruto would be safe. He could forbid them to talk about his status to the future generations, ensuring that Naruto grew up being accepted by his peers. But even if the adults followed his order, albeit grudgingly, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. The young children, having their parents as an ideal they wanted to impress, an ideal wanting to surpass, would notice something different about the blonde boy. Whispers and rumors are certainly one way to mold the opinion of the juvenile mind towards someone. Naruto did not have any friends. He lived in an orphanage and was generally avoided by everyone. Alone and weak prey for stronger to devour. Nothing in his memories suggests he held any previous resentment towards them. Hokage-sama. Yamanaka Inoichi woke him from his inner thoughts. He went to the playground with the intention of making friends, as per your suggestion to him the day prior. Unfortunately, the 3 9-year-old boys didn't like the idea of that boy being in their company. Before he unleashed his chakra in form of the wind element, they started picking on him, calling him names, even hitting him a few times. Inoichi paused for a second, moving his gaze from Hiruzen to Naruto, and back again. And only after that, he did what he did. No previous elemental manipulation or even any shinobi training I found in his memories. Not even the intention of purposely killing them the way he did, before he passed out from the shock. What about his life in the orphanage? Hiruzen asked, ruffling Naruto's hair while he slept peacefully on the bed. He would take him and treat him with some ramen on a few occasions, but would never ask the boy about his actual life. A fact he was ashamed of right now. He promised Kushina that he would take care of her son, yet he failed. The worst part was, it looked as if he did not even try to change anything. Inoichi looked at him with a small frown. I can say it's not a healthy environment in which a child should grow, Hokage-sama. The Hokage's eyes widened at that. Don't tell me. The Yamanaka clan head picked up his shock and quickly said, no physical abuse happened, Hokage-sama. However, the general neglect, ignoring, or when they do notice him, an ugly look as he calls it in his head shape, his rather resentful outlook towards the villagers, from whom he is a target of that treatment, more so than in the orphanage. Hiruzen sighed at that, wanting to hit himself for his previous ignorance. If Naruto received the ugly looks on the streets, the orphanage would be no different. But it was supposed to be his home, a safe haven, when in reality it was not one. Eventually, it would influence Naruto's mind towards more misanthropic worldviews. He needed to prevent more damage. Immediately, he did not want to face Naruto's ancestors one day, pitifully trying to explain to them how he did everything he could. Inoichi continued describing Naruto's isolated life. Fortunately, the starvings and the beatings did not occur, aside from the recent attempt in the case of the latter. He learned how to read and write along with the other children. Though Hiruzen felt as if there was more to it, Inoichi wore a conflicted and pained mask on his face, as if there was more to his experience than just that. Hiruzen did not press the matter further as his thoughts went back to Naruto, though he reminded himself to have Inoichi tell him everything later. A child of his burden needed more, for Naruto was not only a Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails, but also the only son of the Yondaime Hokage, Senju Minato, and alongside Tsunade, a last member of the Senju clan, coming directly from Tobirama's line, being his great-grandson. Growing up and resenting the village his ancestors, clansmen, father, sacrificed their lives for, was the last thing the aged Hokage wanted. He didn't want that to happen at all. Giving him the name of Namikaze was for his protection, at least Hiruzen had hoped. It was a small game of words from his side. He couldn't very well name him the Uzumaki, as it would draw too much unwanted attention from the outside and their rival nations. Then again, Hiruzen didn't know Naruto would be facing these problems. In silent parts of his mind, he did know, but his faith in the village, in the will of fire, was strong, never wavering, not even when Minato died. Perhaps if he had given him the name Uzumaki, the villagers would be more respectful? 2 first ladies did came from the Uzumaki clan after all. Hiruzen made countless errors and countless mistakes throughout his reign. But the error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it. Sending some of his shinobi to the suicide missions, hoping they would survive, silently knowing some of them would die, an error and a mistake. An error he would try to remedy in the future. Mistake never to repeat, and often would. But even that would not bring back the dead. All his errors, all his mistakes would forever haunt him, just like any innocent whose life he ended during the war would, because in a way, he was the one responsible for the deaths of those ninjas. Looking at the sleeping form of Naruto, Sarutobi swore he would correct this mistake. He placed his trust into the wrong basket. It was time to place it with Naruto. He owed the boy and his deceased family that much at least. He called out to his nearby ANBU before doing anything. Cat, summon the head council to the meeting chamber in 30 minutes. 1. The ANBU in question simply nodded and went to fulfill the task she was given. Promptly standing up, he addressed Inoichi, who was still in the room, waiting for his further instructions. Walk with me, Inoichi-kun. After making sure there were at least 2 ANBU guards with Naruto, along with giving a warning to the doctors not to speak to anyone about it, Hiruzen made his way to the office. In the meantime, Inoichi wondered what his Hokage planned to do with the council. It was no secret among the ninja population that the Sandaime and his former teammates had a clash of ideologies ever since his reinstatement, particularly regarding Naruto. Udatain Koharu and Mitokado Hamura certainly passed the transition from firm supporters of Sandaime to biggest supporters of Shimura Danzo, another elder and rival to Sandaime. Inoichi, himself being the member of the head council as representative of Konoha's intelligence division, was a witness to their constant debates but found himself supporting the Sandaime for the most part, as he, in Inoichi's mind, truly embodied the will of fire. At the meeting chamber a half-hour later, in one of the rooms, specifically meant for these kinds of meetings, the head council was gathered. Aside from the Sandaime Hokage and Inoichi, who represented Konoha's intelligence division, present were Shimura Danzo, Udatain Koharu, and Mitokado Hamura as the village elders and more in Shimura's case. Jonin Commander Nara Shikaku, the ANBU commander, and lastly, the head of Konoha's military police force, Uchiha Fugaku, were present as well. Without preamble, the Sandaime decided, or at least thought, to start a meeting that way. However, the impatient as ever, Koharu interrupted him anyway. I assume this meeting is about today's incident with the Jinchuriki? Growling at being interrupted, which Koharu had seemed to have noticed, if her sudden flinch at Sarutobi's glare was any indication. Hiruzen nodded in any case. What else could it be about? Though he would have to investigate how they actually knew about the incident before he told them. Perhaps a purge in the ranks would have to commence, regardless of to whom the information such as that one would be delivered. Instead, Sarutobi said, "Yes, The 3 academy students attacked Naruto-kun at the playground, during which he unintentionally unleashed his chakra in the form of the wind element. Unintentionally said with absolute firmness, leaving no place for an argument. "Have you decided what to do with him then?" Koharu continued, composing herself, though a small hint of fear was present. Sarutobi said nothing, except closing his eyes and pursing his lips, and giving a quick nod. However, Hamura, more composed than their female teammate, in a more authoritative voice proposed. Regardless of everything, perhaps it would be for the best to place him under Danzo's protection as was suggested before. Hiruzen was not surprised by his idea, if it could be called one. He was going to deny it in any case, but he allowed Hamura to continue speaking, at very least to hear more of his reasoning, even though it was not the first time he made such a proposal. Given his mental state and the future development of the same, I believe it would be in the village's best interest that the Jinchuriki be trained by Danzo. His affinity for wind, a strong one, is an even bigger reason for that. He nodded towards Danzo, who in turn nodded as well. I agree with Hamura. He looked towards Hiruzen then. The boy should be given to me, at least while he's still young and malleable. You know this incident will affect him even more than the general treatment by the populace. With me, he would not only become a trained shinobi, but a loyal one to the Konoha as well, with a better childhood than he could hope for at the moment. Danzo placed the accent on the word treatment, almost as if he was proud of that fact. Whatever your plan was for him, I doubt it would work in the long run. Loyal to you, Hiruzen scoffed inwardly. Danzo looked towards the other members of the head council, but aside from Hamura and Koharu, he only found disapproving frowns and glares, causing him to scowl lightly. He wouldn't get their support. The ANBU commander was loyal to Hiruzen first and foremost. Shikaku and Inoichi were Minato's friends, and they knew about Naruto's parentage and were thus even less likely to support him on such a case. He was on bad terms with Fugaku ever since the Kyuubi's attack and subsequent transfer of the Uchiha clan to the edge of the village, causing Fugaku to always speak against Danzo's proposals and voting against them when such an opportunity arose. Lastly, he looked towards Hiruzen, his former friend and rival, who strangely had a small smile on his face. I have already decided what to do with Naruto-kun, Shimura. You need not bother with your proposal any further. The same goes for you too, Koharu, Hamura. This time there was a little disdain in Hiruzen's eyes when he looked towards his childhood friends. Their knowledge of Naruto's mental state would have to be investigated. The 3 of them were the prime suspects of revealing Naruto's status to the village, no doubt hoping he would give the young boy to Danzo for training Konoha's ultimate weapon, while on the surface sugarcoating him that it was for the Senju heir's protection. Well, he would enjoy crushing their delusions even now as he did any other time. Naruto-kun will live in his home, by the right of his birth. This caused some of the council members to widen their eyes at the Hokage's decision, with Nara Shikaku being the first one to speak. While I do think this is the best case of action, Hokage-sama, who will take care of his basic needs? After all, he is still just a child. And if word gets out that the deaths of 3 academy students are connected to him, his treatment will get even worse. No idle boredom was present in Shikaku as he said that. I have few people in mind whom I trust to take care of Naruto-kun without problem. And I will brief you all once I convince him to accept this job, Hiruzen told them. In regards to the general populace, it would be best that what was said at this meeting remains here. He looked at all of them for a few moments, his gaze lingering on the 3 elders who sat on his right side, for a bit longer. Unsupervised elemental manipulation. Inoichi, Fugaku. I trust the military police and analysis team can cover this. Both of them nodded. Inform their parents that they experimented with elemental manipulation without supervision. The same goes for the rest of the village. No connection can be made to Naruto-kun. I don't want seeds of any conspiracy theories to be planted anytime soon, or ever for that matter. Inoichi, just like Shikaku and the ANBU commander, were his loyal supporters during these types of meetings. Fugaku supported him as well, more out of resentment towards Danzo than the loyalty from the heart. Still, it was better than nothing. While the council couldn't overrule the Hokage in any matter, discontent could be transferred onto the rest of the village. He was lucky that 3 clan heads were on his side. Hiruzen knew that Fugaku knew about Naruto's parentage, as Kushina and Mikoto were best friends, even if he and the rest of the Uchiha clan resented Minato for becoming the Yondaime Hokage on top of being a Senju as well. However, for all his dislike towards Minato, Fugaku was a man of honor, who rarely questioned orders, only when it would hurt the interest of his clan, like relocation of the Uchihas to the other part of the village. Something which Hiruzen started regretting as he supported Danzo in that regard. However, it was too late to remedy that, for now at least. He had to fight on another front at the moment. Hiruzen's gaze lingered on the head of the Uchiha clan, and briefly wondered if it was him who revealed Naruto's status to the village. It could certainly wash away some dirt that was placed upon the Uchiha name after the incident, and any suspicions along with it. Aside from us, 6 of my ANBUs and 2 doctors at the hospital whom I trust know this. Before coming here, I briefed them all to not speak to anyone about this incident. I expect the same from all of you as well. From now on, this an S-class secret. They were silent for a moment before each council member gave a silent nod at confirmation. You can go now. They all nodded once again, with the clan heads and the ANBU commander standing up to leave. The 3 elders lingered for a bit longer, hoping to sway Hiruzen, but when Danzo stood up to leave, Koharu and Hamura followed. However, before they all went on their way, Hiruzen called out the 3 elders. You 3, stay. As the room emptied, Sarutobi addressed them, slowly ticking the table in front of him as the seconds passed. You know what the penalty for breaking the S-class secret is. It was not a question, but a statement, although the elders did not appreciate that the Hokage had so little faith in them. Hamura and Koharu at least did not. Danzo remained impassive as ever. Koharu decided to speak on that, her eyes nearly closed and narrowed. Of course we won't speak about Dash. She would have said more, but was interrupted by Sarutobi. Like you 3 couldn't be silent in regards to Naruto-kun's Jinchuriki status? No proof, but a word of warning that he would be watching them. Hamura and Koharu tensed for a moment. Danzo was silent and unmoving as ever. Hamura decided to retort. We didn't say anything about that. You have no right to accuse us of such a thing. Indeed, I have no proof, but it's not as if you gave me reason to trust you on that matter. Hiruzen simply smiled wryly. In any case, you've been warned. You can leave now, but know that I will not be merciful if you betray me here. Will not be merciful like I was before. This is your last warning. He narrowed his eyes as he finished his words. The 3 of them nodded, even if Koharu and Hamura were displeased with their council being shut down without any argument, along with being a target of suspicions. But before they left, the Sandaime spoke once more with clear disappointment dripping from his voice as the words left his mouths. Tobirama Sensei would be disappointed in you 3 with how you want to treat his only living descendant. Danzo spoke this time with a sneer, his visible eye narrowed down, and a look of disgust being sent towards the Sandaime. Nidaime-sama would not place the interest of one child, even of his own blood, over the good of the entire village. You forget the reason why he and Shodai-sama wanted to create this village in the first place, Danzo. Sarutobi retorted, and then he smirked. It's one of the reasons why he chose me as his successor, and not you. No retort came this time, just the sound of the elders leaving. Hammer, however, has definitely hit the nail. Slowly breathing in a tired manner, Hiruzen in his mind thought, I wish Torafu and Kagami were my teammates, or at the very least, alive. God knew it would have been easier to deal with the other 3 with them there. An idea passed through his mind, an idea of a merciless action, of the walls and floor covered in blood. But it vanished quickly as it came, and Hiruzen felt both sadness and shame. The next day at the hospital. Slowly opening his eyes, Naruto found himself staring at the white ceiling of a room he has never been in before. He rubbed his tired eyes, clearing them from the morning eye crust. Why am I here? He wondered for a moment before the flashbacks of the previous day suddenly hit him like a pair of bricks that crashed onto the sloppy workers. Struggling to catch his breath, he felt the arm of a stranger patting him on his back, calming him down a bit. Easy there, Naruto, it's all right. The stranger urged him in a kind manner. When Naruto lifted his head up, he saw a tall man with a strange mask that looked like that of a dog's face and a tall, spiky silver hair. Memories of 3 dead bodies around him, before he passed out, still fresh in his mind, propelled him to ask, I killed them? He whispered weakly in a questioning tone. The man with the dog mask was quiet for a few moments before saying, Hokage-sama will explain everything to you once he comes here. In the meantime, try to relax a bit. Naruto nodded, while the dog-masked Anbu gave him a glass of water. Hokage-sama, or the old man as Naruto called him most of the time, was the only person who would talk to him, who would tell him stories just like a real grandfather would to his grandson. He hoped that the dead bodies of the older kids in his memories were just a nightmare and that the old man would tell him that as well. The dog-masked Anbu motioned for his colleague to tell the Hokage about Naruto's current status, after which he remained with the blonde boy for a time, looking sadly at him. He was no stranger to the first kill, especially at Naruto's age. He had his own first kill when he was as old as Naruto, albeit not on a fellow villager. If the word fellow applied to his sensei's son in this case, since the deceased boys didn't think of him like that when they pushed him to the limits where he ended their lives. 5 minutes passed and the Sandaime Hokage arrived at the hospital room in which Naruto was staying. Seeing his grandfather figure arrive, a small smile formed on Naruto's face as he spoke in a hoarse voice. Old man. In return, old Hokage gave his own small smile to the young boy. How are you feeling, Naruto-kun? He asked him, moving to sit beside him on the white sheets of the hospital's bed. A bit tired, but it's more that my stomach hurts. I had a nightmare. Naruto scratched his hair, trying to make sense of that nightmare as he spoke. What was the nightmare about? Sarutobi carefully asked. At the follow-up question, a small frown graced Naruto's face. Sarutobi suspected what Naruto was going to say. Certainly, first time experiencing death and first kill, it was to be expected. Especially at Naruto's age of 6, when he didn't even mean to do it, it would lead to initial denial. I dreamed that I killed 3 older kids who bullied me, but I didn't mean to do it. I just wanted them to stop doing it. He remained silent after that, most likely still trying to deny such a notion, with his hands scratching his head, running wildly through his blonde hair, trying to make sense of it. A part of Sarutobi wanted Naruto to remain that a child, ignorant of his burden, even if it was impossible to do so anymore. If he evaded answering the question now, he could risk hindering Naruto's growth or even worse, direct it to the wrong road. The young boy, who was always brighter than his peers, as much as the situation and ways of upbringing allowed him, carved for 2 answers. He knew that the villagers disliked him and wondered why they did. The second question was, who were his parents? It was almost like fate. A parent's love was the ultimate form of love a child could receive. A love that could be a sanctuary for most problems. But many children who grew up in the orphanage didn't know about it, and thus wouldn't question why they didn't receive it, at least in Naruto's age of 4 when he first time asked him that. And as the Senju clan, Naruto's clan was known for their love. It was no surprise that Naruto subconsciously upheld their values. Blood is not water after all. Avoiding the answer now or giving the wrong answer, Sarutobi risked Naruto resenting him, or even the village later on. If this incident doesn't make him resent it anyway. Do you know something about that, old man? Naruto asked him after a short silence. Looking at him, Hiruzen decided to tell him the truth. I do know, Naruto-kun. He paused again and then sighed, feeling his eyes heavy with the weight of 100 stones being pilled on them. And, I'm afraid what you dreamt wasn't a nightmare, but the actual reality. Naruto's eyes widened again and his body began shaking, making Hiruzen grab him by the shoulder to calm him down. Calm down, my boy. Nothing will happen to you. I certainly have no right to punish you, as I'm partially responsible for this entire mess. A moment of silence passed before Hiruzen continued. After a quick investigation, we have found you did it unintentionally as they had provoked you first. If anything, they got what was coming for them. Sarutobi didn't like the way how he addressed the 3 deceased boys, but Naruto needed to calm down, and more than anything needed moral support. He wasn't at fault anyway, and he did not need to know about the fact that Hiruzen had someone dwell into his mind, lest to frighten him even further. As they started beating you, you unleashed your chakra in the form of wind element, after which it hit all 3 of them, causing them to lose their limbs, damage their internal organs, thus ending their lives. He waited for Naruto to process that. The end result was far worse than those simple words. What will happen to me now? Naruto asked quietly, his eyes full of fear of the unknown. Worry not, my boy. Nothing bad will happen to you. As I said, this is partly my fault. I could have done more to protect you and more to prevent something like this to happen to you in the first place. After saying this, Sarutobi stood up and walked towards the hospital's window, looking at the village, contemplating how to explain this to Naruto. He had to know the truth but needed to be sure he would keep it a secret for now. This conversation, while not the way how Hiruzen imagined to have with Naruto at this young age, and not under the influence of these circumstances, had to happen. Naruto-kun, what I'm about to tell you, you must not tell anyone else. At least until you grow up and become stronger to defend yourself from anything that could harm you. Again, went unsaid. Hearing what he said, Naruto looked towards the ANBU with the dog mask, who was with him when he woke up. Seeing this, Hiruzen smiled. Minato's boy certainly inherited his sharp mind. If he did this right, he would set Naruto on the path of greatness, ensuring the boy to have a fully normal life one day. Normal as much as it was allowed to one shinobi, and he definitely needed to become one. It's all right, Naruto-kun. He already knows what I'm about to tell you. Naruto nodded. Kakashi already knew Naruto's parentage. And who knows, he might even become a sensei to Naruto one day. Breaking from his musings, Hiruzen started speaking again. Have you ever heard of the nine-tailed fox? A silent prayer was sent for this to pass without a problem. 1 hour later. Explaining about the Kyuubi to Naruto passed with no yelling or crying from the Senju boy, only of his little fists clenching the bedsheets in whatever emotion he felt at the moment. The first significant emotion he saw was when he started talking about his parents, his remaining family in both the blood and bond. There were tears of both sadness and happiness, especially when he mentioned to him how much his parents loved him, and how happy they were learned he would be born. Naruto more or less accepted what Hiruzen had told him, along with his new living arrangements. As Inoichi told him before, the orphanage, where he was shunned and ignored, was certainly not a good place for him to grow up. So Hiruzen, just like he told the council before, decided for Naruto to live in his clan's home with a caretaker who would regularly visit him and help him whenever he needed help, especially with the shinobi education which Naruto gladly accepted. Hiruzen would have to check the compound first before he arranged everything. Naruto's academy time would start in 1 week anyway on the 1st of November. Still, he was glad that the young Senju had accepted what he told him. He couldn't go around with his real clan's name for some time, at least until he became a Chunin, maybe Jonin. If he was anything like his father or other ancestors, he would become one in a short time after he graduated. But Sarutobi also told him to not rush and graduate early. It would be better to do it like the rest of his peers. Many Senjus had died early because of that, and the clan was nearly wiped out in the 3 shinobi world wars, simply due to graduating early and going to the front lines. Ego, fame, acceptance, or legacy means nothing if you die too soon to experience the benefits of any or to actually leave some of them behind. Being in the safety and hidden from the outside would allow Naruto to grow and get an adequate strength to defend himself, to become strong, before embarking on the outside world to complete his missions and make a name for himself. Rest for 1 more day here in the hospital, Naruto-kun. I will make arrangements for you to move into your new home, Sarutobi told him. I understand. Naruto nodded before he remembered something else. You said I will get a caretaker? Who will it be? That you will find out tomorrow. He is due to return from his week-long mission today. Maybe he already did. Hiruzen mused in the end, after which he left Naruto to rest and went on his way to do his Hokage duties. The next day at the Senju compound. Following his recovery in the hospital, Naruto was escorted to his future home by one of the Hokage's ANBUs, a woman with long purple hair and a cat-like mask, whose codename was apparently Cat, just like how the other's ANBU, who was with him when he woke up after the incident, was codenamed Dog. His new home, previously populated by his deceased Senju clansmen, was the compound located closest to the Hokage's tower and the academy, but still isolated enough from the rest of the village, laying quietly under the same hill on which the faces of all Hokages were carved in. Nowadays, the compound was abandoned. Its only residents were dirt, dust, and the occasional birds that had made their nests on the various tall trees that were growing strong in the backyards of the now abandoned homes. Maybe even rats in various holes of the buildings. Even if his clan was known as the Senju clan of the forest, mostly thanks to his great-granduncle Senju Hashirama, it was no less true that the rest of them loved the trees as well. As a testament to their devotion, this compound could be considered Konoha inside of Konoha, albeit abandoned. As they reached what looked like the main residence of the clan, they had to stop for a while in front of the building's front door, as apparently, the main residence was protected in seals that would allow only those of Senju blood to enter or those who were permitted by the creator of the seal. The person who created these seals in the first place was Senju Minato, the Yondaime Hokage, his father. One of the reasons was so that his wife could walk freely inside and out, and also to have bigger protection from potential Iwagakure ninjas who sought revenge for their loss in the last war. The old man also told him that when she was young, his mother, Uzumaki Kushina, was the target of kidnapping by Kumogakure, who wanted to use her for her special chakra. All of that made Naruto even more convicted that he must keep his secrets for now and to become strong in order for something like that to never happen to him or his family one day. Strong enough to never get into a situation like the 2 days ago. The deaths of those 3 older kids still haunted Naruto's thoughts. Would they ever stop haunting him? Shaking his head, Naruto tried thinking about other stuff to clear his mind. It was still hard to imagine that he was a member of the legendary Senju clan, even if they had largely died out. With the 2 members remaining, Naruto knew that another heavy burden was placed upon him. Not only would he need to revive his clan one day, he needed to be sure that he would make his ancestors proud as well. While Senjus, aside from his great-granduncle, didn't possess any particular or unique bloodline, the members of the clan were known for exceeding in various ninja arts, as well as having powerful and large chakra reserves, according to the Sandaime. He wondered who his caretaker would be. Maybe his godfather, Jiraiya of the Sannin, or perhaps his aunt Tsunade. No, the old man said it would be a man. As much as he was wondering who it would be, curiosity propelled him to wonder what he would find in his future seal's protected home. Maybe a library with his clan's techniques? The old man told him that when the village was created, as a clan known for 1,000 techniques, the Senjus donated much of the lower-rank to mid-rank jutsus to the Konoha's shinobi library so that it could help non-clan aligned potential ninjas to develop. However, they kept much of the higher-ranked ones for themselves. It would have been dangerous to give them away, as you would never know what damage could have happened if they found themselves in the wrong hands. For the first time in his life, Naruto wanted to explode with excitement. Not long after, Sarutobi Hiruzen arrived with another elderly man, whose gray hair was tied in a small ponytail. All the while his face was marked with a kind smile that never seemed to fade away. Naruto-kun, allow me to introduce you to Mariboshi Kosuke, your new caretaker, Hiruzen announced. Pleasure to meet you, Naruto-kun, Kosuke said with his usual smile. Likewise, Kosuke-san, responded Naruto with a smile of his own, extending his hand to greet the kind old man. As I already told you before, Naruto-kun, the main residence of the Senju compound operates with seals that were placed here by your father. However, after his unfortunate death, I had Jiraiya place alarm seals around the house to warn me if anyone ever tried to break inside. Naruto nodded and proceeded to ask a question. Has anyone ever tried to break in? Sarutobi nodded. Indeed it has, but there was only one such case. A newly promoted Chunin, Mizuki, attempted to break through around 4 months ago. He walked over to the wall and simply knocked 2 times, for which a small wave of blue chakra was sent on all sides, like a rock falling into a puddle, eventually fading away into nothingness. See, the examples of seals your father has made. Even if you hit harder, you will find it hard to break through. Mizuki of course tried to do it, but the additional seals Jiraiya placed alarmed me, and so we had him apprehended. So how will Kosuke-san here actually be my caretaker if he can't even enter? Hiruzen simply smiled at the young boy. Indeed, he won't be able to enter the main residence. However, not the entire house is covered in seals. There is a segregated part, specifically meant for guests. Kosuke will live there, Sarutobi explained. However, it will be up to you to clean the rooms of the main residence. as only you can enter inside, Naruto-kun. Naruto nodded in understanding, while Kosuke was silent. He certainly didn't expect this turn of events. He didn't even consider himself worthy of becoming a caretaker or tutor to Naruto. But he owed that much to both the Yondaime and Nidaime. Hiruzen told him that out of all people in the village, Naruto could grow up to become a good man, only under him and his nearly 50-year-old experience. Kosuke knew that Hiruzen was not sugarcoating, but actually meant every word he said to him. Flashback.
Sunday Masama.
While I don't doubt your wisdom in regards of arranging a new life for Naruto-kun, I must politely refuse your offer. I'm not worthy of teaching young Naruto, and I'm certain there are more worthy shinobi in the village who are. Kosuke quietly answered to Sarutobi after hearing of his offer. Sarutobi only sighed and looked at him. Kosuke, I honestly doubt there are. I refuse to allow any of the clans to adopt Naruto-kun on the principle that it would create unbalance and division or even jealousy among them. Had he not have problems with Orochimaru, I would have put him in the care of Jiraiya, but as we do, I have no choice but to look for an alternative. He paused for a moment, before continuing. Jiraiya has tried to locate Tsunade on few occasions, but aside from running into her debt collectors, or casinos she visited, he had found nothing. And we discarded that option. If Tsunade doesn't want to be brought back to the village, then so be it. Kakashi is in the ANBU and is needed on the field constantly. Plus, with his emotional trauma from the losses of the last war and from the Kyuubi's attack, I fear he is not suitable enough to raise Naruto-kun with his psychological condition. I'll give him a few more years to find a way to cope with his losses, and then I might place Naruto on his team if he gets better. Kosuke remained silent as the Sandaime's words flooded his ears. Kosuke, I know you still blame yourself for your comrade's death, but just like Tobirama Sensei had told you once before, I will tell you now. Use that mistake, that experience, your knowledge, and pass it to Naruto. I made more mistakes than you, my friend, but brooding and punishing yourself will not bring back the dead. Ensuring we don't repeat them will prevent new graves, tears, and hatred from emerging. For we are shinobi and we endure. And I'm sure Tobirama Sensei would not want you to beat yourself anymore. He would be glad that someone like you is tutoring his great-grandson. Sarutobi remained silent after that. Kosuke thought about many things. Would Tobirama-sama approve of this? Would he find him worthy of training and educating his great-grandson? Those questions loomed in Kosuke's mind. But knowing the man and his personality and fighting alongside him on many occasions answered Kosuke's question. Almost like he heard the words of the man himself. I accept the assignment to become Naruto-kun's caretaker, Hokage-sama, said Kosuke professionally. End of flashback. After that, he and Hiruzen have talked about how Kosuke would raise Naruto, how his education and shinobi training would be delivered, and many other plans. Kosuke was sad to hear about the new burden that had been placed on the boy. He hoped he could help him to overcome the guilt of unintentionally killing 3 academy students, even if in Kosuke's opinion, Naruto was not guilty at all. But if he did feel guilt for it, then it only convinced Kosuke that the young boy would grow up to become a splendid man one day. Well, I will leave you two to get to know each other now, Sarutobi said. Listen to what Kosuke tells you, Naruto-kun. You won't regret it, and will learn much from him. He addressed to the young Senju. I will, old man. I won't fail you. I promise, Naruto announced with a smile and conviction in his blue eyes. It was rather refreshing to see this new aura that emanated from Naruto, Sarutobi thought. He had high hopes for this arrangement. Now, he only needed to inform the council of it and to make sure certain members do not meddle in. Even if he warned them on their last meeting, he doubted that all of them would fall in line immediately. Those 3 have become too confident with their positions in the last few years. But even if he didn't trust them as he used to, Hiruzen still recognized their value. Danzo's route was a necessary evil. And despite all of their faulty views, Koharu and Hamura were good administrators who had kept the village's hierarchical system running, thus easing the burden he had to carry for the village's sake. One thing he did know is that the next few years would be interesting, particularly watching Naruto's progress. He didn't remember when was the last time he was this interested in the development of one of his ninjas. He had faith in Minato's boy. After all, The blood of the Kages coursed through his veins. Naruto could one day surpass his father and great-grandfather, and earning the respect of not only his home village but the entire world. With Naruto and Kosuke at the same time . So, Naruto-kun, shall we introduce ourselves? Kosuke asked, to which Naruto eagerly nodded. November 1st, the academy. The excitement was a feeling that Naruto didn't have very often. In fact, he could list the times he'd been this excited in one breath. His birthday, when the old man visited him and took him for some ramen, the moment when he moved into his new home were those moments, and having a caretaker, a substitute for parents in his case. And now he had another one. Remember what I have told you, Naruto-kun. Listen to your teachers at the academy, do what they tell you. And when you finish your classes, we shall begin your shinobi education right away. The voice of his caretaker brought him from his thoughts. Better we don't waste our time. Naruto turned to him with a determined look and answered, I will, Uncle Kosuke. However, he suddenly faltered, which made Kosuke frown. But will the teachers at the academy be okay with me there? No doubt they know about the Kyuubi. He asked in a hushed voice, so the others would not hear him. You need not worry about it, Naruto-kun. Hiruzen told me he made sure that the staff knows not to sabotage you or anything, and he has picked the teacher for your class by himself. Kosuke answered him. He could see the look of suspicion from Naruto. They were standing in front of the academy's entrance, along with more than 100 parents and their children who aspired to become shinobis of Konoha, yet still a bit away from the rest of the crowd. Some of them looked at Naruto with a look of disdain but did nothing more. The Sandaime could control them that much, it seems. Furthermore, I think you might find some good friends in your class, he told him with one of his usual smiles. This made Naruto raise his right eyebrow. How can you be sure? I didn't have much luck in finding them until now. He kicked a small rock that laid by his feet, sending it flying away. You will see. That was the only answer he got. But Kosuke knew that Hiruzen picked this class specifically, for it included 7 of Konoha's strongest clan heirs and members, and some of those clan heads apparently knew about Naruto's heritage, so they might not be against their children being friends with him. They were at least more informed than your average civilian, but only time would tell. I hope so, Naruto muttered. Not long after, one of the academy's staff members arrived at the front door and told the students that they must be at their assigned classroom in half an hour. As some of them scrambled to enter, Naruto decided to stay aside for now. He had time after all. Good luck, Naruto-kun, Kosuke told him and bid farewell. Thanks. As the dust settled, Naruto moved into the academy. While walking through the hallways, he saw many of the older kids either walking or standing around, chatting and whatnot. No one paid him any mind, but that was good enough for him. He looked around the signs that pointed the room I-4, hoping not to get lost. Luckily he didn't, and before long he arrived at the place where he would spend his early mornings till noon, for the next year. As he entered the room, he noticed that the desks were covered with accessories, bags, and various items that belonged to his classmates, even if not all of them sat in their seats at the moment. Looking around, he saw a free seat at the back row near the window, only 2 boys sitting there. Perfect. It would be better to remain behind, away from the center and attention. No doubt, once the parents of his classmates hear that he is in the class as well, they'd try to influence their children negatively on him. Finally, knowing the reason why the adults disliked him brought a semblance of peace to Naruto's mind. He didn't like it, but he could understand them. It wouldn't mean that he would allow them to walk over him, though. Is this seat taken? He asked the 2 boys with caution, once he approached them. No, feel free to sit. The boy with black hair, tied in a spiky ponytail, answered in a bored manner as he looked up. Naruto proceeded to sit. Even if the boy's mannerisms were a bit weird, he didn't detect any ill intent behind his words. Let's give it a try. I'm Namikaze Naruto. Happy to meet you. He hoped to make friends with the 2 of them, or at least try. Nara Shikamaru. The black-haired boy answered him before motioning his hand to the chubby boy near him, who was currently engaged in eating chips. And this is Akimichi Choji. Now revealed Choji nodded, offering some of his snacks to Naruto. If you don't mind, thanks Choji. It was good that he read the book about the first introductions, as the two boys didn't seem to mind his company. Maybe Shikamaru and Choji were different. A flash of lightning passed through his head. They were from the Nara and Akimichi clan, one of the stronger clans of Konoha. "Are you two from the Nara and Akimichi clans by any chance?" he asked just to be sure. "Yeah, as our surnames suggest," Shikamaru answered plainly. As if it was the most obvious thing in the world, Shikamaru eyed him curiously. "You're from a civilian family, right?" "Something like that, I guess," Naruto said. "I'm an orphan, but my caretaker is a shinobi. By any chance, did you two receive training from your clans already?" he asked, hoping to change the subject as soon as possible. He wasn't keen on divulging his private life to others, even if he meant to make friends with them. "Not yet. My old man said not to rush things, it would be troublesome," the Nara said. "What do you mean by caretaker? Anyway, he didn't adopt you?" Naruto looked at Shikamaru. He didn't think anyone would catch on to that. Certainly not a 6-year-old. "Well, something like that," he vaguely said. "Old family bonds. As I'm an orphan, he took care of me." Naruto hoped his answer would satisfy Shikamaru. He needed to keep his heritage a secret, at least for now. Luckily, Shikamaru accepted the answer. "Do you know anyone else from the class, by the way?" he asked them, further changing the subject. "Blonde girl with short hair is Yamanaka Ino." This time it was Choji who answered his question, pointing at the said girl who was engaged in girlish conversation with another pink-haired girl, with a piece of chips in his hand. "There are some other clan children here. The boy they are giggling at is Uchiha Sasuke," Shikamaru said, rolling his eyes. Instinctively, Naruto narrowed his eyes for a moment. While Kosuke didn't start his practical training yet, he did tell him a lot about the village's history, together with the old man Hokage, when he visited a few times last week. Naruto knew little about the Senju Uchiha rivalry from their stories, but hoped everything would be good between him and Sasuke. "Loud one out there is probably an Inuzuka. The one with glasses looks like the Aburame. There's a Hyuga heiress as well, from what my dad told me, though I don't know which one it is." Shikamaru pointed individually at two recognizable boys. "There are probably more clan children, both larger and minor clans in other classes. One of my cousins is in another class." They continued to engage in conversation on various topics for some time. It was a good feeling having someone your age to talk to. Both Shikamaru and Choji seemed friendly, and Naruto hoped they would stay that way. From their conversation, Naruto found out that the two of them knew each other from before, as their clans kept close ties, together with the Yamanakas. Shikamaru initially seemed bored about everything, which worried Naruto that he was a boring company to him. That is, until Choji whispered to him that it was a characteristic of Nara clan members to act that way. Their conversation came to an end when a female shinobi, presumably their future homeroom teacher, entered the classroom, causing those that didn't sit before to scramble to their seats. As they settled down, she spoke first. "Good morning, class," to which all of them responded in kind. "My name is Taketorai Sadoru too, and I will be your homeroom teacher for the next 6 years," she said with a kind smile on her face. Her eyes were of a dark blue color, while her hair was black and was tied in a top-knot bun. She wore the standard chunin vest, but not pants. Instead, she used the simple hot pants that left much of her curvy legs revealed. "I'm 16 years old, and have been a chunin for 2 years now." "A woman sensei? Troublesome," Naruto heard Shikamaru mutter beside him. "Before I begin the introduction to your curriculum for the next 6 years, we will have a roll call, like every other day from now on." "Right then, let's start," Sadoru-sensei said in a melodic voice, after which she started calling out names, checking them that they were present. When she got to his name, no incident happened, to which Naruto was grateful for, as it seemed that he will be treated no differently than the other students. "Okay, now that we're finished with roll call, I'll explain to you what you're going to learn for the next 6 years, before officially enlisting to Konoha's regular forces, genin in your case." She paused to make sure they were listening. She continued explaining for the next half hour their future education, which will be divided into practical and theoretical parts. At the end of every 4th month, they will have an evaluation from the subjects that were taught during that year, in both practice and paper theoretical part. From practical, during their first year, they will learn to mold chakra, basic chakra control that they will have to expand to other versions when they become genin, hand seals, and initial taijutsu and bukijutsu. From the theoretical part, which will be more present in the first 4 years, less in the last 2, but present for the entire time, they will have mathematics, history, geography, and shinobi culture, which Naruto assumed will cover the shinobi hierarchy, organizational system, ideology of will of fire, etc. Human biology will come in with further branching of bukijutsu. Genjutsu will be covered from the 3rd year on, later on with the basics of fuinjutsu and the introduction to medical ninjutsu in the last year for those who are interested in such art. Remember one thing that our esteemed Naidame-sama used to say that is important for shinobi to take care of. Those are mind, technique, body. She told them in the end, before dismissing them during their first day. Great-grandfather's words stuck to Naruto. Mind, technique, body. It was easy to memorize them, and all in all, Naruto couldn't wait to start. After the academy. "Hey Naruto," he heard Shikamaru calling him as he exited the academy. "Me and Choji are going to the playground now, want to come with us?" he asked him. At the mention of a playground, Naruto's entire body froze, and his eyes widened immediately. The playground was the last place he wanted to be. Memories of dismembered limbs and hands and 3 dead bodies suddenly hit him, but he managed to compose himself. Maybe next time. I have something to do now. See you tomorrow, Shikamaru. Choji." He quickly told them before running back home, making sure nobody saw him as he entered the compound. Seeing his blonde classmate running off so suddenly and his demeanor from before made Shikamaru frown slightly, and made him wonder if there was something more regarding this. From the little time he spent with Naruto before the class started, he could see that he was rather smart for his age. Like him in a way. Naras were known for their intellect, which was a trademark they were famous for. But the orphan such as Naruto was knowledgeable about many things. Not to mention his eyes, who were a bit uneasy from time to time. Was he missing something here? Maybe Naruto was simply shy before getting more familiar with someone. He would investigate it some other time. For now, he would go with Choji and play, probably before his mother started nagging him for not coming home early. As Naruto reached his home, he found Kosuke clearing the large pond from leaves that had fallen from the nearby tree. The backyard of the main residence where Naruto and Kosuke lived has been covered in grass and bushes that have spread around due to the years of neglect. For the first day after meeting Kosuke, the two of them decided to clear the main residence's backyard, which took the entirety of their day. During that time, and the following week, Kosuke told many stories to Naruto, missions he had with Naruto's father and great-grandfather, and a lesser-known grandfather, Senju Bishamon, who died during the middays of the Second Shinobi World War, leaving his son, Minato, practically an orphan, just as many other Senjus like Tsunade's younger brother Nawaki died during that war, further crippling the clan, whose numbers already dwindled in the first one. According to Kosuke, Bishamon was among the most powerful shinobis of Konoha at that time. While he never mastered the Flying Thunder God technique like his father, or like his son later would, Bishamon was a master of bukijutsu in every branch, especially when he combined it with his wind element. Dying during the battle against the Sandame Reikage, sacrificing himself to hold off the enemy so his comrades could retreat. Similarly, how his father held off the Kinkaku unit protecting his students. Albeit, unlike the Naidame who died from wounds in the village later on, but not before killing the Gold and Silver brothers, 3, Bishamon did not survive or kill the Sandame Reikage in the process. While spending time with him, Naruto learned many things about Kosuke as well. His caretaker apparently, even after 40 years, still blamed himself for the deaths of his comrades during a mission a long time ago, which caused him to always try and sacrifice his life during the missions, something which many people, including the Sandame Hokage, constantly reprimanded him about. Noticing him approaching, Kosuke stood up from the pond before greeting him and asking him about his first day at the academy. "It was great, Uncle Kosuke. Turns out there are a few clan heirs in my class. I got to know 2 of them, Nara Shikamaru and Akimichi Choji. We sat together and talked about countless things." As Naruto continued retelling about his first day at the academy, Kosuke could only smile. It was good to know that the Nara and Akimichi were not prejudiced against the young Senju. Their parents knew about Naruto's heritage, so they might have instructed their children to be nice to him, or at the very least, like they would to everyone else. Although from Naruto's words, no such thing could be detected. It seemed they were genuinely nice. You picked a good class, Hiruzen. Kosuke knew that he would need to help Naruto overcome his guilt sooner or later, after hearing why he came home earlier. He himself needed to fight his own demons. But he was 62 while Naruto was only 6. The boy must not make the same mistakes as him. Teaching Naruto to become a shinobi and, more importantly, a good man, was part of the legacy he wanted to leave behind after he died. Well, Naruto-kun, seeing as the academy is over today, how would you like to start your training early? He asked him. I'm ready, uncle. It was a nice feeling of having someone refer to him like that. He never married and his family was long dead. He considered his village as his family, a notion that the Naidame told him to follow. But this was different, it was far more satisfying. Let us begin then. Chapter 2 Family. 3 months later. That would be all for today, Naruto-kun, Kosuke said to him as their daily training regime was finished. Every day after the academy, where Naruto would spend around 8 hours from the early morning, he would train with Kosuke for the rest of the day. Initially, it was just like in the academy, only chakra control. A long and tiresome exercise that seemed pointless at first. Learning necessary hand seals was at least somewhat more interesting. After the first 2 weeks, he began learning the basic taijutsu katas that were also the first steps towards the more advanced taijutsu styles. Those were taught throughout Konoha to the standard shinobi forces, which were largely composed of the ninjas with a civilian background, shinobi who didn't have the clans to rely on for their progress. But instead of those standard ones, Naruto, for his taijutsu training with Kosuke, took one scroll which had the Naidame's taijutsu style written in it. Fortunately for him, Kosuke, even if he did not know that particular style, was able to help Naruto get into its initial forms. But the style itself was a lot more complex than it seemed at first hand. It was based on the agility and speed, which had also made his great-grandfather famous. Speed and agility that Naruto didn't have at the moment. I must also regrettably inform you that I have a mission tomorrow. Naruto's face morphed into a frown up as he heard that. How long will it last? 1 week at most, unless something drastic happens. Ever since the first day he met him, Naruto knew that Kosuke would have to, sooner or later, return to do missions, albeit not as often as he used to. I have prepared everything that you will need for the time I'm not here. He continued listing things as they sat on the nearby garden bench to rest. If you need anything from the village, don't hesitate and use the transformation technique you were taught. He could do that. It was the first technique Kosuke had taught him after he properly learned how to mold chakra. Aside from that, he had also learned the body replacement technique and the body flicker technique just last week, but not after being drilled into the long chakra control exercises of the tree walking and the water walking, much to Kosuke's dismay after finding out that the tree and water walking were taught only once one became a genin. Being a Jinchuriki and having the large chakra reserves, both from the beast that was sealed inside him and blood of his clans, it was prudent for Naruto to know them. After finishing his duties with Kosuke, Naruto went inside his house, getting himself something to eat, before going to his father's working room within the building, which was also the office of his grandfather and great-grandfather in their time. It was a rather large room with no windows as it was located in the middle of the residence, flanked by other rooms from both sides, plus connected to the Hokage's hill directly. The first time he entered the room, he was in awe of the countless books he found. From history books to geographical, religious, adventurous to even the 3 romance books that the old man always read. And the dust. Everything, along with the rest of the house, was covered with it. Naruto had to clean it all himself, for no one else could enter those parts of his home but him. For the first 2 days after moving into his new home, Naruto had spent his free time reading whatever had caught his hand first. There were countless instruction manuals on how to be a shinobi, introductions to different ninja arts, including the elemental manipulation and the training regimes that the Senju clan practiced during the Warring States era. But aside from the introductions, there was not much more on those topics. There were various other scrolls with different techniques, but they were up to the B rank at most, apparently. Still, you do with what you had at hand. He showed some of the training regimes from the Warring States to Kosuke, to which the man smiled and told him that the Naidame would also drill all of his students with the same heat. Nonetheless, Naruto easily found out why his clan was feared during their time. To even use the resistance seals contrary to the more common weights. It not only increased their already large chakra reserves but also the speed during the battle once the seals were turned off. It made Naruto ponder on how his clan got decimated so easily with the power they possessed. The Sandaime had told him that many of his clansmen, being the prodigies in their own rights, graduated early from the academy. And considering the village was in a state of war with other nations a large part of its existence, they had no choice but to deploy the young when needed. Naruto sighed. As the old man said, you learn from your mistakes. He hoped not to die early, as life was just getting better. Since Sunday was the day off with no classes, the only day during the week they had that generosity, Naruto could stay awake a little more. Currently, he was reading the official history of the Third Great Ninja War, battles that were fought, particularly the battles in which his father has fought, and his rivalry with the son of the Third Raikage who was also a designated heir to the seat of the Raikage, being the Yondaime Raikage now in his own right. Along with the dictionary book for any word he did not know the meaning of to help him right away. Completely lost in time as he read, Naruto ignored a loud hooting of the owls from the outside. Eventually, a small yawn caught him and he accidentally pushed a wooden cup to the back of the table which was a mere inches separated from the wall, with just enough space for the said cup to fall through. Luckily it was empty, so the floor wouldn't get wet and no damage to the parquet would be made. Plus, he wouldn't need to try and move the supposedly unmovable table that had looked like it grew from the ground floor itself. Ugh! Getting clumsy like this, Naruto grumbled as he stood up over the table to try to pick up the cup, but as he leaned forward and moved his hand over the small space between the table and the wall, the built-in bookshelf to his left side started moving slowly further left, catching him off guard. Wow, what is this? Waiting for the bookshelf to stop moving, which it did, Naruto completely forgot about the cup and turned his attention towards the bookshelf. Now fully moved, a place where the bookshelf was formerly at place, an entrance to the moderate-sized tunnel that went deep into the hill with staircases going down and sconces at the wall supporting the potential torches was revealed. Looking down the place between the table and the wall, Naruto saw a glimpse of a wooden cup that was on top of a rather unnoticeable switch from a normal point of view. Cup must have triggered the opening, and a bookshelf acted as the door. As he had a free day tomorrow, Naruto decided to investigate it further into the night. Taking a nearby lampshade with him, he started walking into the tunnel. At the very entrance, he saw another switch with a similar shape like the one behind the desk, only on the wall. Figuring it will simply close the door, he turned it on, proceeding to walk further into the cave and carefully stepping on each stair. His right hand holding the lampshade, the left one leaning on the wall as walked down. The wall on which he leaned was layered in the invisible chakra, invisible to the normal eye, similarly to the walls of his home, a layer of chakra that prevented outsiders from coming in. I will need to have some torches placed here one day. After 10 meters or so of the quiet walk, he finally got to another room, larger than his own. There were various bookcases on the edges, and one working table to his right. This must be the clan's secret library, one that only the current clan head would have known of. What would happen to this place if my father had died childless? He didn't want to dwell on that thought, proceeding to look around. Bamboo and wooden scrolls, instead of the usual paper ones, were, for the most part, the most populous inhabitants of the various bookcases that graced this large room, probably to survive the test of time. That didn't mean there weren't other books as well. Books that his normal library didn't have, as he saw some titles for the first time. What is a seduction and how to counter it? Was one of the titles he saw. One of the titles he saw for the first time. In one corner of the room, there was a large shelf with various weaponry and armory, from the flying thunder god kunais that were hanging on the wall, to the beautiful kohl-of-color kuzurigama and one katana that had the Senju clan symbol engraved on its sides. There was one object that greatly resembled Vajra from the symbol of his clan. Gently taking it as it was a religious relic, well to Naruto, anything from his family's possession was, he inspected it with curiosity. Due to his excitement, with both blood and chakra running wild through his body, like a river torrent on a stormy day with winds making it faster than usual, a strange object suddenly lighted itself, full in bright yellow color and magnificent glory, almost making him drop the lampshade. Like lighting, Naruto instantly thought, wait, lighting? This must be the sword of the thunder god, great-grandfather's sword that he used in battle with his own Hiraishin kunais. He knew about it from stories Kosuke had told him. Those stories were always spoken with a great deal of awe and respect that his caretaker held for Naruto's ancestor. Amazing! he uttered out loud for the first time since coming to this room. Turning it off and gently laying it down, he looked at other objects that were there. There was one of his father's coats he wore after becoming Hokage. But what mesmerized Naruto the most was the blue armor that stood attached to a wooden doll with dirty white fur and a spider webs around it. This must be Nidame's battle armor, one he wore during the Warring States era and in which he fought his last battle. He said to himself as he made the line from dust, tracing his small fingers across its stomach. A picture he saw in the history books flashed in front of his eyes as he imagined the man who wore it during his time. I can't believe a place such as this actually exists. He looked towards one part of the room with its entire side filled with a line of bookcases that had the ninjutsu written at the center above it. Approaching it, he looked around the various wooden scrolls that each had its own small sign on what it contained.
Shadow Clone Technique.
Shrugging off his shoulders, Naruto took it. Perhaps he would be able to learn it. If it was different from the one Academy is supposed to teach from the second year onwards, maybe he'll be able to master it. A regular clone was borderline impossible for him to learn, no matter how much chakra control exercises he performed. He could mold chakra the correct way, but he would always produce one sickly clone laying on the ground, half drooling, half sleeping. It won't hurt to try, he hoped. Apparently, this technique was created by Nidame himself, who also created its various other variations, Naruto noticed as he read the scroll and its contains. Having to fight the Uchihas since I could walk, I learned that there is nothing more infuriating than having your hard work stolen. Spending weeks, even months, creating, perfecting, mastering new techniques, only to have a member of that cursed clan flash his red eyes and simply copy it. It would make even a member of Nara clan riled up. Hidden clan techniques are generally harder to copy as other clans do not fight the Uchihas as much as we Senjus do. Not to mention reducing hand seals necessary to perform it. So why not create something that could kill two fleas with one hit? But what? The answer is the shadow clones. While the Uchihas tend to be predictable fighters, even with their Sharingan, I'd rather not have someone sneak out from the fight and later distribute my hard work to them. To even use it against my own clansmen. Unfortunately, it has happened already. The shadow clone technique, while splits the user's chakra, can also kill the user if he doesn't have enough of it. Something which the Uchihas in general do not have, at least by the Senju and Uzumaki standards. There is nothing more satisfying than having your opponent cripple himself during the fight, making your job a lot easier. Because that's what shinobis do, they win. Not by honorable means, for we are not samurais. We simply win. The following part of the bamboo scroll contained the drawn explanation of a simple hand seal required to make the shadow clone and the way chakra should be molded to create it. Naruto found it easy to learn, and given his already large chakra reserves, he doubted the jutsu would have had some negative effects on him. The Nidame himself had a large and powerful chakra, but even he didn't have one like the Jinchurikis did. The rest of the scroll explained the other purposes of the jutsu that had more flexible use than Naruto originally thought it would. It could transfer anything the clone learned to the original. It was also good for spying and intelligence-gathering missions. Ideas running through his mind, Naruto imagined what could he do once he mastered it. Sending clone to the academy to the theoretical work? Yes, he would do that. Help him with elemental manipulation once he started learning it? Yes, he will do that. Help me in a fight and overcome the opponent with sheer numbers? It was an unorthodox approach to fighting, sure, as it would pointlessly waste chakra. But still, this jutsu was a goldmine of possibilities. He did not fight a foolish grin from appearing on his face as he fantasized about it. At the thought of elemental manipulation, Naruto looked around the other bookcases of the room and found few that had countless scrolls for each element. While his regular library had those as well, this one had the advanced and higher-rank techniques, as well as the theory and explanation from which he could develop some techniques further. Looking around, he saw one book about the theory behind the bloodline mutations. But for now, he would not touch that. He would go step by step. He returned to his room not soon after and went to sleep, snuggling in his warm bed. Though the snow was not present, it was still January, and the nights were cold. He had a free day once he wakes up, and he was going to use it the best way he could. Tomorrow, outside of Naruto's house. Standing in the middle of his backyard where he had usually practiced his taijutsu and basic kinjutsu with Kosuke, Naruto prepared himself to perform the shadow clone technique he had read about last night. Kosuke already went on a mission, and Naruto had to imagine his face once he saw him do it. Inhaling then exhaling a few times, Naruto made a shadow clone hand seal, molded chakra the way it was needed, and poured as much as he could into use, in the end saying, "Shadow clone jutsu." As soon as he did that, everything around him was covered in smoke. The Hokage's office. Sitting in his office, overlooking some paperwork that he was buried in, Sarutobi suddenly felt a large surge of Naruto's chakra coming from the east, his home. Not thinking about paperwork for a second anymore, Sarutobi body flickered out of his office, his ANBU guards following him in his wake. As soon as he arrived at the Senju compound, he was astonished by the sheer number of blonde heads that covered the surroundings. Even the roofs of the nearby storage buildings had been covered with them. Quickly composing himself, while some of his ANBUs were still in a state of shock, he decided to approach the young Senju and get some answers out of him. "Oh, good day, Hokage-sama. What brings you out here?" Naruto asked, grinning like he never did before, proud of himself with the amount of shadow clones he made. Senju Tobirama, in the scroll, suggested that those who had large chakra should make 10 clones at most, even if he himself could create more than that. Mostly for the sake of effectiveness. Although chakra would return to the original user, unless of course completely wasted from the clone side or dispelled during the combat. It would be a strategic blunder to leave the main body weak, even for a moment. Neither Sharingan nor Byakugan could see through it, and the Night Aim was not the man to take the risks needlessly. "Naruto-kun, what were you thinking using this jutsu? Don't you know dangerous it is?" he questioned sternly. "What was Kosuke thinking of teaching it to you?" Uncle Kosuke didn't teach me shadow clones," Naruto said. Mirth in his eyes was still present, though his face looked like it was made of flat stone. "Then who did?" the Hokage questioned further. Naruto for a moment looked towards the other ANBUs who were present, all of them looking at him behind their masks, but the gaze of their eyes was felt upon his body, then towards Hokage himself. "I found a scroll about it in my library." He omitted saying which library. If Old Man could figure it out somehow, he would keep it to himself. As the head of his own clan, he should understand the need to keep something secret. Sarutobi in the meantime wanted to slap himself for forgetting that it was his sensei who created that jutsu. Of course he would have it personally, even if he declared it to be a kinjutsu. One of the few kinjutsus that many shinobis didn't want to use even if they had some desire. "I see, but you should know it is dangerous. Some ninjas died trying to perform it," he told him, still serious from the entire situation. "I know the scroll said as much, but it is still easier for me, as I already have large reserves plus my tenant who constantly expands them. Among other things, he didn't need to mention resistance seals that Kosuke showed him how to place on himself. It was much safer if the user did it himself, as it could prevent someone else from using it against him during the fight, and adding additional levels later when he wanted. Not to mention, he wanted to surprise the old man one day when he decided to test him." Sarutobi sighed. "Very well, but please for my sake, don't use it around the village. I don't want people being suspicious of you and complaining later on, for whatever reason they may come up with." "I understand, old man." "Oh, I almost forgot. Don't use it with its variations, at least not on this scale. If he had a scroll for regular shadow clones, shadow clone explosion would be no exception." With that said, Sarutobi and his ANBU left Naruto and returned to the tower. Naruto simply smirked and promised he wouldn't before he left, after which he ordered his clones to dispel, which might not have been his brightest idea as he was suddenly hit with memories of all 100 of his clones. Clutching his head in slight pain, Naruto moaned. I need to learn how to sort out memories in a better way." Scroll explained that it would be best to do it one by one, or if one had very good chakra control to sort the memories out in his brain with more numbers. In the meantime, Sarutobi thought as he walked towards his office. "I wonder how those three would react if I told them the amount of shadow clones Naruto-kun can make." That very thought brought a smile to Hiruzen's face. Ever since he was young, he enjoyed seeing flabbergasted expressions on their faces. Danzo was better at keeping his emotions in check and away from the public's eye. Sarutobi couldn't remember when was the last time he saw his rival speechless or dumbfounded about anything. When Minato was chosen as Yondaime, he could at least see him growling. Heart attack, maybe? He continued imagining how that conversation could develop. Danzo's potential expression could make it to the history books, but the thought of it and him suddenly made Hiruzen frown. Danzo would no doubt attempt to kidnap Naruto and brainwash him into his personal drone if he knew Naruto's almost limitless potential. Even if he didn't tell him about Naruto's progress, Warhawk would no doubt find out himself. Gritting his teeth, Hiruzen knew he would need another conversation with him. Despite all the warnings, he could never be sure. As Kosuke went on a northeastern border with the Land of Hot Water to help the teams there reinforce the defense of the borders of the Land of Fire, he would need to place additional guards around Naruto's home for the duration of Kosuke's absence. On any sane day, he would execute the man for defying him. But since the new year, the Uchiha clan has been even more restless for being suspected of being guilty of the Kyuubi's attack. New arrangements would need to be made for the time being.
Cut.
Sandaime called out one of his ANBU who momentarily appeared before her leader. Yes, Hokage-sama? Arrange with Boar and Falcon to make a guard duty for Naruto-kun for the duration of 7 days. The mission might be prolonged depending on the situation. At least one of you has to be watching him while he is out of his house all the time, even when Kosuke comes back. Dismissed. The ANBU in question nodded and went on to make the arrangements for the mission. 3 ANBUs from 6 who knew about Naruto's incident from a few months ago. Kosuke would hopefully finish his mission on time. There weren't many shinobis older than 60 with his experience and knowledge of the Land of Fire's terrain. That's why his presence was needed there. Otherwise, Sarutobi would need to bring in some other people into this case, omitting certain truths of course. With Naruto at the same time. After resting for a bit, Naruto decided to the basic physical exercises that he'd done with Uncle Kosuke before. The next thing he did was perfecting the body replacement technique and body flicker technique. Kosuke told him that he should never underestimate low-rank jutsu such as that one, for it was life-savior on the battlefield. As he performed various katas, Kosuke thought him, Naruto realized it was better if he had a partner to spar with. Quickly making another shadow clone, he begun sparring with him, careful not to dispel the clone. He didn't need to worry himself regarding that. Another clone would take his place. But following Nidaime's words mind technique body, it was prudent of him to know how strong of a hit he would land on his opponent, when will he land the hit and how he would land a hit. Fuinjutsu was an art he had not only hoped to learn but needed to, given his status. While initially resentful of his father for placing such a burden on him, with passing time, the anger lessened. Now Naruto understood the dilemma his father probably had. The Shodai Hokage, Senju Hashirama, was the one who captured the Kyuubi and other tailed beasts. Forcing someone else to carry the weight and balance of the elemental nations was out of the question. Being the Hokage at the time didn't help either. Village was founded on the principle of will of fire, an ideal that his clan embodied most of all, sacrificing your own happiness for the greater good. If he wasn't ready to sacrifice the happiness of his only son for the sake of the village, how could he expect others to do the same, even if many of them spat on his wish later? Hearing his stomach grumble in hunger, Naruto decided to go to the village and get some ramen to eat. Using a henge, he transformed into an older, imaginary version of himself with red hair without whiskers and went on his way. Tucci and his young daughter were always welcoming of him in their shop, and they knew about his henge as he told them. It wouldn't do good to freak them out if his henge dropped, or even for them to freak out, hearing an order of 9 bowls of miso ramen from someone that was not him. Few times, Naruto noticed people suddenly leaving if they saw him enter the shop, or even if they approached it. They would pass it by with disdain in their ugly eyes when they saw him in. After all, eyes are the reflection of the soul. The Academy, February 1st. Today we will be having our first traditional shinobi spar. Class, Sadaru-sensei told them. Please be quiet as you step out of the room. We don't want to disturb other classes. There was an immediate chorus of happy and excited shouts from the children. Sadaru sighed at the utter disregard for her order. They'll learn in time, hopefully. Troublesome. I hope I won't have to fight today, Shikamaru mumbled beside Naruto. For 3 months after meeting Shikamaru and Choji, Naruto remained friends with them. While he still didn't go to the playground, he would always have lunch with them at the academy. On a few occasions, Shikamaru brought a shogi board with him and asked him if he wanted to play. While never playing it before, Naruto quickly started catching up, after Shikamaru taught him how on one of their breaks. If the serious expression on Nara's face during their last 2 matches was any indication. As they arrived at the academy's field that was meant for practice, Sadora-sensei started explaining rules and rituals before and after every spar. Regarding the actual spar itself, for now, they would pick 2 students randomly by opening their sheet record to see if they practiced any of the actual katas they were taught previously. Okay, the first draw is Uchiha Sasuke, Sadora-sensei announced. At the same time, many of the girls squealed in delight at seeing him in action. The other one is Namikaze Naruto, she told them and looked towards him, smiling. Good luck, Naruto, Choji told him. Shikamaru offered his support as well. As they stood across each other, making a seal of confrontation, both boys were studying their respective opponents. Sasuke had a confident look on his face. The only thing he knew about Naruto was that he was an orphan, coming from a civilian background, but he had a strange aura around him which made Sasuke wary. Senses he didn't know he had until now warned him not to be overconfident. Naruto, on the other hand, knew quite a bit about Sasuke, or better said, the Uchiha clan. He knew nothing about Sasuke personally. He spent yesterday evening in his clan's secret library. Unlike his son and grandson, the Naidame had much more prejudice and distrust against the Uchihas. And while Naruto never had any bad engagement with them, he started understanding his ancestors' paranoia. Losing 2 of his brothers, father, and countless other relatives during the Warring States period didn't help it either. For Tobirama was a man who neither forgave nor forgot easily. But he could pass by his prejudice for the good of the village, as he had an Uchiha student himself. Reading about some of Tobirama's ideas and personal thoughts inspired Naruto that he could do the same for the villagers. That he would muse about later, as Sadora-sensei soon announced the match with. Begin! Neither boys moved but stood in their own respective katas. Sasuke in his own Uchiha style, a predecessor before he awakens his Sharingan, after which the style itself needed to be adopted to conjure better movements with his eyes. Naruto in the meantime stood in his great-grandfather's style Suijin's Fury 1, which was based on cooperation with Suiton element in addition to Naidame's famous speed and agility. Albeit Naruto didn't practice or even knew if he had that element, the style itself was flexible and is focused on speed and precise hits. Similar to the Hyuga's clan Gentle Fist, yet different all the same. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. That's not the academy style. No matter, I'll still beat him, he thought confidently as he leaped forward. As Naruto saw this, knowing he was faster than Sasuke, now with his resistance seals off, stood calmly, preparing to evade when the time comes. Sasuke had his fist ready to hit Naruto, exactly 30 centimeters distance between the two, before Naruto jumped and swirled around in the air, as Sasuke's arm passed where Naruto's body should have been. For a second, while he was in the air, Naruto prepared his own fist and quickly punched Sasuke right in the face, his cheek to be more precise, which caused the young Uchiha to fall to the ground immediately. The silence was a bit unnerving as everyone watched what happened. Sadora-sensei quickly announced, "Winner, Namikaze Naruto." Naruto approached Sasuke and offered his hand, which the Uchiha accepted, proceeding to ask, "What was that?" "It wasn't any of the Academy's kata we're taught here." "It's not. It's a work in progress, for now at least." "Well, it was, even if you don't have the water affinity mastered, you still need to have your body adjusted to the style, and Naruto started learning it for give or take 3 weeks now. His muscles were hurting a bit now." "Well, it's good. Will you teach me once you master it?" Sasuke asked bluntly. Naruto raised his eyebrow in curiosity but answered nonetheless. "Only if you teach me your Uchiha style." Sasuke looked at him with a blank expression on his face, but then he smirked. "Not a chance, but a fair point." "Nice fight, buddy." Choji congratulated him. "Thanks. What was with that style? I've never seen it before," Shikamaru asked him. "It's a work in progress," Naruto only said. Shikamaru looked to accept the answer, after which 3 boys resumed to watch few more spars, chatting between them in the meantime. You like gardening? The question came from Choji. Yes, I do. Or at least I'd like to try, Naruto told him. There was a strange sense of euphoria on the notion of having such a hobby. Training and reading were fun and all. Notion of gardening almost seemed integrated in him. Do you guys know where I can buy some seeds? Try Yamanaka Flower Shop. Aside from flowers, they also sell seeds for those who want a garden. Shikamaru suggested. I didn't know Ninja Clan did that type of business. Naruto wondered. All clans do, Shikamaru said, as it was the most common thing in the world. At Naruto's raised eyebrow he continued. Troublesome, but all larger clans have different sources of income. Yamanaka, Nara, and Akimichi have a partnership between us. Yamanaka supplies us both with various plants from which the Nara clan makes medicines to supply Konoha's hospital and shinobi forces, just like Akimichi's make food pills. Other clans have their own type of income growth, though I'm not familiar with them. That is what my old man told me once. I see it would be hard to keep the income high as not everyone in the clan is shinobi, and those who are would most of the time have their own families within the clan to support, in addition to the clan itself. So these businesses are generally safe from the dangers some higher-ranked missions can possess, but still give you guys a fairly good source of wealth. Am I right? Naruto concluded. Shikamaru smiled and said, You are. So, will you visit the Yamanaka flower shop today? Then, Naruto nodded. I would like to. Will you show me where it is? Sure. My mom wants me to pick up some flowers for her. Even if she could do it herself. Says it's to cure my laziness, whatever that meant. So, meet you here in the afternoon today, is that okay? It is. 2 years later, Naruto age 8. Hokage's office. Rubbing his temples, Sarutobi sighed as the thoughts about the events from 4 months ago appeared in front of his eyes. He always tried banishing hatred from his heart due to his profession, as it was one of the emotions that would hinder his ability to be a shinobi and could potentially be his downfall as the Hokage. Just like Sensei told him before he died. But he couldn't feel anything but hatred and sorrow right now. Hate towards Fugaku for his plan to start a coup d'etat and to try and use Naruto as a means to diverge Hiruzen's attention away from his clan. But also to later use the boy as a weapon to have better control over the village. Fugaku was not as honorable a man as he had led everyone else to believe. 2 weeks before Itachi did what he did, there was a break in the security, as the information was leaked to the rest of the village that it was Naruto who killed the 3 academy students who bullied him. The bullying part of the information being omitted from the rumor. While he wanted to simply execute Fugaku for leaking it, as it was he who did it according to Itachi, he couldn't. The Uchiha clan as a whole was far too involved in the coup. Had Danzo not ordered Itachi to eliminate them, a civil war might have broken out in the village anyway. The Uchihas may not have possessed the manpower to overthrow him. Far from it. But it would cause much wider damage, as they could use the civilians to gain wider support. The worst part? Many shinobis came from civilian background originally. Some of them could be swayed. The village was weakened enough from the Kyuubi's attack. More bloodshed was not needed. Ironic. Though the villagers were a double-edged sword, as many of them held a deep sense of distrust towards the Uchihas as well. It was a gamble that Fugaku was willing to take, but Hiruzen was not. That's where he planned to use Naruto for his vile goal. Danzo was the second person Hiruzen hated. Had he not created the friction with the Uchihas in the first place, none of this would have had to happen. Sarutobi ordered him to disband the route, but he had doubted that his rival would simply do as he had asked. He probably just went further into the underground. Hiruzen would let him continue to defend the Konoha from the dark, mostly because he didn't know what to do with more than 100 highly trained drones. At the very least, he could stop him from recruiting this way. This made him hate the third person most himself. Had he been the true shinobi as Tobirama Sensei always envisioned him to be, the day Orochimaru escaped, countless problems could have been avoided. Jiraiya would not need to run around the elemental nations, chasing after him, fixing Hiruzen's mistakes. Jiraiya could stay in the village with his godson. Naruto would not be alone for the first few years of his life and would not need to unleash the wind element to defend himself at the age of 6. Had he not been a sentimental craven, he would have executed Danzo a long time ago and would not walk around and did as he pleased. Now, too deeply involved, and in order to defend Konoha from potential threats, he allowed Danzo to walk freely again. The result of his weakness. 455 dead Uchihas, including 47 children from which 6 were just out of the cradle. Uchiha Sasuke being the last Uchiha alive. Last, loyal Uchiha. Hiruzen corrected himself mentally. Naruto Namikaze, the last loyal Senju, becoming even more introverted and slightly misanthropic towards certain villagers. Kosuke reported that the boy was pretty normal outside of the wider circles of society, contrary to his appearances in public. But it wasn't a healthy behavior. He didn't want the boy to become a certain type of eccentric person. While he still had 2 friends in Nara and Akimichi's boys, he was distanced from the rest of the class. Much like Sasuke was. But while for Sasuke, his classmates reserved pity, for Naruto they felt fear. This was all too much for him to bear. If only Tsunade would decide to return to the village and become the Hokage. She was young in her own way, but she had a reputation of being a hothead who didn't take a no for an answer. If she ordered the villagers not to shun Naruto, they would probably kiss the ground he walked over. Maybe he was exaggerating, but she was the perfect candidate, as Jiraiya didn't want the job. Sometimes he felt that the 2 world wars, during which he led the village, were far easier than the political climate ever since Minato died. Rebuilding the village from the damage of the Kyuubi's attack. Reorganizing shinobi forces and forcing retired ninjas on active duty. Funding for the orphans from the war and the attack, the latter of one leaving many more than the war itself. The Hyuga affair, Naruto's incident, and finally the latest one, Uchiha's plan for coup d'etat. If only Jiraiya was here right now. Did you miss me, Sarutobi-sensei? Speak of the devil. Jiraiya, Hiruzen happily exclaimed, his eyes lighting up in a joy he rarely felt in the past few years. What's with the gloomy look, old man? You're 50 years too late to refuse the job. Jiraiya joked as he entered the office through the window. It's yours if you want to take the carriage from this old man's back. Pass. The Sannin raised his hand in defense, smile still intact. Hiruzen smiled. He needed someone to talk to, someone he could trust with no reservation. Ordering his ANBU to leave and setting up the privacy seals, he turned to his student. You have no idea how happy I'm to see you, Jiraiya. I've been looking everywhere for you for nearly 2 years. Jiraiya, still keeping a small smile on his face, took a seat in front of the Hokage. You know the spy master's job, sensei. I needed to lay low for a while, especially when searching for Orochimaru. Settling up in serious expression, Hiruzen asked him, what have you last heard of him? Did he defected to some other village? It would be even more prudent to eliminate him. If he defected to Kumo or IWA, there was no question that they would need to reorganize their entire defenses. There was no telling what Orochimaru would tell them. But that was a low possibility. For all their rivalry and hate with Konoha, Kumo and IWA hated Orochimaru for killing some of their top shinobis and being one of the most militarist figures among their prime enemy forces, the one who pushed for further war with them. Kiri was a possibility as it had a lot of bloodline holders, something Orochimaru loved dearly. But being a caste-based society with paranoid leadership, suspicious of its own citizens, Kiri would be hard-pressed to accept him. The most likely scenario is that they would execute him and try to figure out Konoha's weaknesses by themselves. No, at least not in a traditional sense. Jiraiya started. I found out that he was keeping some connections with a few of the clans in the land of rice fields ever since the start of the Third War. One branch of the Fuma clan, Shin, Endo, Tu, and various others. There is also rumor of a hidden village forming in that country. Aren't they 60 years too late for that? Sarutobi snorted, and as did Jiraiya, but his expression turned serious after a while. We'll need to investigate that in any case. If Orochimaru is behind its creation, he will definitely pose an even greater threat to us in the future. A new hidden village that borders us is a potential threat, especially if Orochimaru is behind it. We've never had good relations with those clans. There is more, sensei, Jiraiya said after a small pause. Shortly after fleeing the village and before formally creating his own, Orochimaru joined a criminal organization, the one named the Akatsuki, composed of a few other S-rank missing nins. Hiruzen's eyes widened. S-rank shinobis were not so easily found under a rock. In fact, right now they could be listed in Konoha on one hand, all 5 fingers not needed. Do you know any of their members? Aside from Orochimaru, of course. And, he slowly asked. He himself knew one already. The one who said he would join, Hiruzen remembered. No, but you know one of them. In fact, you placed him in a position to join them, didn't you, sensei? Jiraiya said, not letting Hiruzen even finish his thoughts. Keeping his straight face, Hiruzen closed his eyes and nodded, muttering, Itachi-kun. Yes, him, Jiraiya confirmed, nodding as he spoke. You don't know how shocked I was when he sent one of his crows and caught me in that genjutsu of his for a second, Jiraiya said, smirking. I must be getting rusty lately. Anyway, after he caught me in his genjutsu, he told me of his mission against his clan. Political climate in the village prior to the massacre, of course, including the incident about Naruto. Jiraiya glared at Hiruzen after mentioning the name of his godson. Hiruzen simply continued nodding with his eyes closed. I will tell you everything about Naruto-kun, Jiraiya, after you tell me of this Akatsuki organization. Before he left, Itachi told me he will join them, but nothing more. Jiraiya sighed and stood up, approaching the window of the Hokage's office, looking at the village in the distance. In truth, I don't know that much about them, the actual members or goals. Itachi told me he will deliver more information on them after he establishes himself for some time. Smiling at the next thought, Jiraiya continued. But he did tell me just before I arrived here, again via his crows, that Orochimaru tried to take him and his Sharingan. I see that the deluded student of mine failed has in his endeavor. Sarutobi smirked as he spoke. What happened after that? Not much aside from Orochimaru fleeing, possibly towards the clans of the land of rice fields. Jiraiya answered. We can safely assume that the Akatsuki and Orochimaru will be at each other's throats for a while. Initially, I wanted to suggest you send a few teams and investigate those clans, but if the rice daimyo has given him asylum and word gets out we're having incursions into a country that is not in any sort of alliance or agreement with the Land of Fire, it could cause an international incident, worse, a new world war. It would be best if I go there and try to investigate it myself. Indeed, Sarutobi said. I know that the Fire Daimyo would support us if it got to that. He always did, ever since he ascended to his position. But I don't want to abuse his fondness of us. If we did send a few platoons, the Rice Daimyo could call upon other neighboring countries and make it like we're invading them for more land, where we would be drawn to war with other smaller villages. I have no fear that we would beat them, but it could potentially weaken us and give more leverage to either Kumo or IWA to take the chance and act against us. I don't want another episode of the Hyuga affair. One was more than enough. The last words were spoken by Sarutobi with gritted teeth. After lighting his pipe, inhaling and exhaling some smoke, Sarutobi spoke. Officially, we will do nothing but watch for now, that is. With all that has happened in the last few years, there is nothing more we can do. You, on the other hand, should try to find out as much as you can. Jiraiya nodded. I'll keep my eyes open on this small war between the Akatsuki and Orochimaru. If they end up destroying each other in the process, good for us. One of them should be weakened by the end. We could use that. Sarutobi grunted in affirmation. Now, tell me about these incidents with Naruto, Jiraiya said with a serious expression, taking his seat once again. Sarutobi waited for a few moments before replying. Very well. For the duration of the following half-hour, Jiraiya listened to everything that Hiruzen has told him. From the first time Naruto had unintentionally used the wind element, to his time at the academy. Listening to Sarutobi speak, Jiraiya had to occasionally frown and sometimes smile after hearing that Minato's boy was a top student. Not just in class, but the entire academy. It seems that the talent passed from father to son, each generation of the Senju clan. Jiraiya had no doubts that Kosuke thought him well. It looked as if the eternal genin has finally decided to leave his shell of self-loathing. It especially pleased him when he heard that Naruto was friends with the heirs of Nara and Akimichi clans, even after the truth about the incident was revealed to the public. Shikaku and Choza had good sons to lead their families one day. Even if Minato's boy was a bit introverted, according to what Sensei said, he was highly intelligent. He hoped that Naruto could see the reason for his prolonged absence. He should be at the academy now, right? Jiraiya asked after hearing the full story. Yes, they're having a taijutsu class right now, if I'm not mistaken. Well, I'm going to watch it. Sarutobi raised his right eyebrow. No research right away? That's unusual. He smirked. Some other time, Sensei. This is my priority now, Jiraiya said, smiling, but in a serious tone. At the academy's training ground. Hatano Onagi against Namikaze's Naruto. Begin, Sadora-sensei announced after pairing them together for taijutsu spar. Onagi stood at his side of the sparring field, looking at the Naruto with fear in his eyes. Why the hell was he paired with him? For the first year and a half of the academy, Onagi didn't think much of Naruto aside from being good at everything he did. Good didn't do him justice. Naruto was best at everything. Shuriken and kunai throwing? He'll hit every target he was told. Geography? He'll tell you about the types of trees that grow in the land of waterfalls. History? He'll tell you about the battle Naidame Hokage had with the Kinkaku unit, like he was there himself. The most disturbing part about him was the story about the incident that happened 2 years ago. The incident where he killed 3 older academy students with wind ninjutsu, as some rumors said. What was he? Why was he allowed to enter the academy after doing that? Onagi remembered the time when he and Hibachi called him a geek, nerd. Out of jealousy, thoughts about what his blonde classmate could do to him after revelations brought shivers to his body. But standing in his academy kata facing Naruto, adjusting his glasses, he tried putting his false sense of courage. He practiced with his older Chunin brother. He would put up a fight even if he lost. But fear in his eyes and shivers in his body never left him. Shinobi Rule Number 18 were the words that left Naruto's mouth before he leaped forward. Onagi's eyes widened at the show of speed as Naruto surged towards him, his own fighting style in place, hitting Onagi's shaken hand away before leaving his straight hand in front of his eyes. A shinobi must never show any weakness, Naruto said seriously before leaving the sparring ground, not bothering to do a seal of reconciliation. But what if you don't have strength against the demon? At the academy's rooftop. This is what I was telling you about, Sarutobi said. He goes leaps and bounds compared to his peers. I could let him graduate early, he could have been made Chunin now. Kakashi certainly did before him. But you know how many Senjus died doing that. In times of peace we are, but nothing is certain once you go outside. Sarutobi finished and inhaled smoke from his pipe. Jiraiya said nothing but kept looking down from the roof at his godson. He knew that style of fighting at least from the history books when he saw the fighting pose of the Naidame Hokage. Deadly fighting style, Naruto looked like he was adept at it, if his standing was any indication. He hoped his godson would open up to him, even if he failed him as a godfather for most of his life. You can talk to him after classes. For now, let's go and eat something, Sarutobi suggested. And I want you to tell me if you found anything new about Tsunade. After the academy's classes. See you tomorrow. Later, Shikamaru told him after departing from the academy and going in his own direction. Naruto continued on his way home. Uncle Kosuke had an entire free week, so he could help him further his water elemental manipulation. For now, he was at the second stage of the said manipulation while the wind would come later on. He found out that he had an extremely strong affinity for the water, in addition to an equally strong affinity to the wind. Offensive and defensive element. His clan's library said that if one could master the wind to its fullest extent, he could utilize it as a defense as well. The water could suit as offensive too, although he did not need to master it to the fullest if he wanted to use it that way. Nonetheless, Naruto was adamant in mastering both. Entering through the backyard door to his home, Naruto found Kosuke, the Sandaime Hokage, and a tall white-haired man talking friendly to each other. He looks kind of familiar, Naruto thought before it clicked him. This was Jiraiya of the Sannin, his father's sensei, and of the finest shinobi that Konoha has ever produced. And his godfather on top of that. Now what would he look for him after 8 years? He would find out anyway. Uncle Kosuke, old man, Naruto called with a small smile on his face. These people never shunned him either for the fox or the incident. Uncle Kosuke was not just his trainer, but a family as well. Old man as well. He would occasionally invite him for lunch at his tower when Kosuke was away for a mission. Jiraiya-sama, Naruto said formally, trying to keep his tone as flat as possible. No need to be formal around me, kid. I'm not the one for it either, Jiraiya said smiling. Since you already know about Jiraiya here, he wanted to speak to you about some things, Sandaime said a bit awkwardly. Granted, he already told Naruto who his godfather was when he told him about the fox. But some things happened over a period of 2 years. Anyhow, I have something to speak with Kosuke here, so I'll leave you two to talk, Sarutobi said and, along with Kosuke, left two of them alone. Silence stretched between them, and it obviously became unbearable for Jiraiya. So, I guess since you already know who I am, there is no need for an introduction. Hehe, he said sheepishly. Let's go inside, Naruto said, leading Jiraiya to the part of the house that was not covered in seals. As they walked in silence, Jiraiya looked around the house, memories of walking through it with Minato, sometimes when he was at the village, sleeping here. Minato always invited him in. The man was like a son to him. Hopefully, Naruto would let him into his life as well. After a short walk, they arrived in the living room. Naruto motioned for Jiraiya to sit at the nearby furniture, while he himself sat on another. Silence stretched once again, and Jiraiya decided to break it once it became awkward. So, look, Naruto, I know you're angry with me for not being the... He didn't continue further as Naruto held his little arm up. I'm not angry with you. You're not.
No.
Well, I was at the beginning and later when the village found out about the incident. I resented you for a time because if you took me with you, none of it would have happened to me. But the old man had always told me about your missions and how dangerous it would be for me outside the village. Not to mention your other teammate who is a dangerous enemy. Naruto said. It was true. Old man has told him about Jiraiya's job, as well as the fact that his godfather did take care of him for the first few months of his life, just before Orochimaru went rouge. No, I could have done more. I could have found Tsunade, so at least she could take care of you. But then Orochimaru betrayed us and I had to hunt him down. Naruto cut him off. No need to worry. I'm not the one to wallow in self-pity anyway, so I won't turn you away. I would be a hypocrite if I did anyway. Huh. Jiraiya was puzzled. As I said, I was initially bitter at you for abandoning me, but as the time gone by and I spent time reading some of my father's writings, I changed that opinion. He always spoke highly of you and said you were one of the most responsible Konohanins at his time, doing the best of your abilities for the good of the village. Jiraiya stood up and walked over to Naruto, sitting beside him and placing his hand on his shoulder. You don't need to feel so let down, my boy, and you don't need to be so lenient towards me either. I failed as a godfather and I'm sure Minato will not forgive me either, regardless of the duty I had. Not to mention Kushina, Jiraiya said with a sad smile. Well, I always wanted to have a large family myself. I have a wise and experienced uncle, Old Man Hokage, as a grandfather, and what is another grandfather as well. Even if he's a pervert. Naruto smirked in the end. Wait just a second. How the hell do you know I'm a pervert? I didn't even do my introduction. Jiraiya asked, completely cut off guard. Dad had your pervy books in the library, along with your first one. Which is a good book, by the way, if a bit too idealistic and unrealistic in my opinion. Oh, so you read them? Jiraiya exclaimed happily, but then shivered. Wait, you read Makeout Tactics? Ooh, no. Just a backside and seeing front cover the first time was enough to let me know what it was about. Naruto said, smiling. Good, because Kushina would kill me double once I die if you did. Jiraiya exclaimed, relieved. So will you stay in the village for now? Naruto asked. It would be good to have more people around him who are not afraid of him or outright hate him. Jiraiya nodded. I sure will. I'd like to get to know you better, Naruto. And I'd like to train you sometimes when I'm in the village. Great. After that, they talked for the next few hours. Jiraiya already knew most of the things about Naruto's private life from Sandaime, but was curious about Naruto's training nonetheless. Suffice to say, he was in awe of the shinobi knowledge Naruto possessed, as well as an amazing repertoire of jutsus, given his age. By the time he graduates, he would be far ahead of anyone from his generation if he continued with this road. Maybe I should test him? Jiraiya thought. I'm still a beginner with few in jutsu, but that's because I haven't touched that art as much as I would like to, Naruto said. Jiraiya nodded. You're in luck, because I'm a Fuinjutsu master myself. I'll gladly help you advance your knowledge in the art. And I also have a few techniques I'd like to teach you myself, ones that I invented. Jiraiya said. Really? Which ones exactly? Naruto asked, being excited at such a notion. You'll find out tomorrow. Jiraiya grinned. Fine. But I was wondering about something. How come you never managed to find my Aunt Tsunade? I thought she would be easier to find than your Rouge teammate. Jiraiya sighed, massaging his temples, after taking off his forehead protector. You can never know with that woman, or what she's up to. I admit I didn't try as hard as I wanted, but I tried nonetheless. I only run at her debt collectors. It seems she's adamant about not being found by anyone from Konoha, but at least I can breathe easy knowing she's alive. Jiraiya finished. You mean she's angry at Konoha for losing her brother and lover? Naruto proposed. Not only on Konoha, but she was angry at your father as well. Jiraiya said. My father? But he never wrote anything bad about her. Ha! Jiraiya exclaimed. Of course Minato would not write anything bad about anyone, especially her. She was his family. What I meant was, she was angry at your father for not letting her use some of the clan's money for gambling. He snorted. Man, I remember her leaving the village for the last time, cursing Minato and her own foolishness. Her foolishness? Naruto asked, confused. Yeah. Originally, she was the head of the clan but passed that title to Minato after she retired from the shinobi life. But I'm sure she would return and raise you if she knew that you exist, though. For all her faults, she is a good person. Jiraiya told him with a nostalgic smile. I hope so. Now that I think about it, Minato's death must be the reason she doesn't want to return to the village or have anything with anyone from Konoha. Last time I saw her was before the Kyuubi's attack. She must have been thinking that Konoha is being cursed towards her and her family. Jiraiya muttered in the end. 2 years later, Naruto age 10. Sitting under one of Konoha's waterfalls, Naruto, with another 9 shadow clones, was focusing on splitting the waterfall with his wind chakra. This was the third out of the 5 steps of elemental manipulation, particularly the wind manipulation. The first one was splitting the leaf on the number of times he wanted, the second one splitting the rock the same way. The third one was splitting the waterfall. The fourth one would be drawing the sign on the hard ground using nothing but wind. The fifth part was simply using all that he knew to shape the wind around him with his chakra, with the help of the respective hand seals, although it wasn't easy as it seemed. The wind was infamous as the hardest element to master for a reason. Chakra control had to be perfect in order for the wind techniques to be as deadly as they were in theory, wasting as little chakra as it was possible as well. The third and fourth steps were optional, as Shinobi could utilize this element with his battle fan. The element itself was tied tightly to the user's own affinity and control of the air on the field around him. But Naruto had a very strong one anyway, so once he mastered the element he would be as unpredictable for such an element as it was possible. Contrary to the wind, the water elemental manipulation was of course different. Naruto had to dampen the leaf for the first step, pull the water out of the lake for the second, stop the flow of the waterfall for the third. He finished the fourth step already, which was pulling the water from the trees and plants during meditation in one of the more denser forests of Konoha. Fifth step, he would finish after the fourth step of wind manipulation. This one would possibly be the hardest one, for he needed to turn the aqueous vapor into the liquid state on instinct. Not many ninjas bothered with this step as it required very good chakra control, better than average reserves, and pure dedication. He could use both the wind and water techniques after the second step. Third, fourth, and fifth would only make it easier and make him a master of those elements as well. Most of the ninjas didn't bother mastering their element further after the second step and occasionally third, jumping straight towards the fifth one. Even in Sunagakure, they preferred a battle fan to help them with wind in combat. While in Kiri, shinobis having primary affinity for water, for most of the time only went up until the fourth step, with Kages doing the fifth. Yet even with the fifth step, no one has ever got to his great-grandfather's level. Yet, unlike two of Naruto's affinities, the earth element, which could easily help its user in 90% of situations simply due to the fact that it didn't require the user to master various steps which could take years. Larger chakra reserves and better control was needed if one wanted to call himself a master of that element. Iwagakure loved that fact. Henceforth they preferred quantity over quality of their forces, unlike Konoha, although they did like experimenting with advanced nature transformations. Lighting and fire were different from the other elements. While wind and water required its user to have control of the nature around him in addition to having mastery of his chakra and element within his body, fire and lighting more depended only on its user and his own body and chakra. That would be enough elemental training for today, Naruto-kun. Let us turn to kenjutsu practice for a while. Kosuke called him out from his elemental training. While not adept at various kenjutsu styles the Senju clan practiced, Kosuke was quick to correct Naruto's posture whenever he made some visible mistake. He was a master at Konoha-ryu and its substyles, Konoha's most famous kenjutsu school. For the next half hour, they engaged in the spar, with Kosuke being better than Naruto, but it was expected anyway. Very good, Naruto-kun. Dare I say, you will surpass me in the near future. Kosuke complimented with one of his traditional smiles. Naruto grinned. Can we go for taijutsu next? This was part where Naruto would soon enough surpass Kosuke, mostly due to his speed and youth. Still, Kosuke was no pushover at his old age. That would go on for the next few hours before the evening, with Naruto and Kosuke sparring in various shinobi arts, like every other day. As he had tomorrow day free from the academy, Naruto would spend time in his clan's secret library reading whatever came to his hand. Bidding goodbye to Kosuke, Naruto went on his way towards his home. For the past 4 years, ever since he found the room, Naruto was influenced by the writings of his ancestors, but most of all, his great-grandfather Senju Tobirama. Despite his pragmatic nature, which he claimed to have possessed, and as history books have described him, Tobirama was very antagonistic and biased in his view towards the certain villages, particularly Kumo and Iwa. It was funny to Naruto because those two fought against Konoha in every war, with the former one influencing Nidaime more than anything, with particular theft that would later help the formation of Kimogakure, and 2 brothers who were responsible for it. As he sat in the library, he took a book titled History of the Sage's Blood and Divergence from its main lines, written by none other than Senju Tobirama. Naruto read the first 7 chapters already. They described the history and formation of both the Senju and the Uchiha clans, their diplomatic relations with their various customers, to their influence on the development of the shinobi world and other clans, but from Tobirama's point of view. The book was written from the time of the ending of the Warring States period to the time when he became the second Hokage. The 2 clans apparently descended from the 2 brothers who were sons of the legendary sage of 6 paths. His name was nowhere mentioned, but the name of one of his sons was Ajura. 2. Tobirama reasoned that the name of the sage was lost due to the destruction of certain documents and papers, similarly to the name of the Uchiha clan's progenitor. To fill the gap between the information that was not available, Tobirama would present some of his own theories regarding their origins. But aside from the Senju and the Uchihas, there were an offshoots of both clans, with one of them claiming to possess the blood of both, the Hagoromo clan. Naruto started reading the chapter that described that clan. The Hagoromo clan is an offshoot of the Senju clan, or rather one particular Senju man and woman claiming to be part of the Uchiha clan, although there was no evidence to support this claim, aside from the commonly known Hagoromo legend, one where their founder, Senju Hagoromo and woman of the Uchiha clan fell in love and produced 7 children together. I'm not someone to believe that every black-haired and black-eyed woman with a slightly bigger ego than usual is a member of the Uchiha clan. That, however, did not stop the Uchihas from allying with them. From the clan's genealogy that was looted, after the attack I led on them, no evidence was found about intermarriage with either the Uchihas or Hyugas, but there were few shreds of evidence that I found among them that suggest they may have connections to both of those other clans in a rather unorthodox way. Naruto continued reading through the next few pages which described their daily life, founding date, their fighting style, techniques, and political alliances with mission records that were looted from them by Tobirama Senju, shortly before the formation of Konoha. Naruto looked up towards one of the bookshelves with various wooden scrolls that had the Hagoromo clan's symbol with the name under it. Records of their missions and other stuff must be there. Naruto remembered. He knew about it already but didn't divulge further until now. He continued reading the rest of their history and battles with Senjus. Reading it, he found out they killed many of his clansmen as they were allied with the Uchihas during the Warring States period. 3. Part that piqued his interest particularly was Tobirama's own theory about their origin from gathered pieces of information after their destruction. A few following sections and paragraphs said, "Many clans possess the bloodlust, or at least claim they do, but many of them use it simply in the thrill of battle, usually conducted with their techniques and styles. Hagoromo clan does that too, but on a far wider and far more savage scale than the others. But even with that, there aren't many clans who do that. Although one other clan comes to mind in particular, the Kagaya clan. It is no secret that for all their conservative attitude, the thrill of taboo cannot escape even the Hyuga clan. So it is not surprising when a woman of the Hyuga clan decided to impregnate herself with a bad boy Uchiha. Naturally, the Hyugas didn't like that, for it brought a great shame upon the clan, causing them to expel the woman and her bastard son. The Hyuga woman, named Kagaya, went on with her son, Kimuro, initially to the Uchiha clan, but was refused an entry. In order not to get off from the subject at question here, but after it was formed, initially in the land of hot water, the Kagaya clan gained an infamous reputation as being a clan of bloodthirsty savages, but with a powerful gift, Shikatsumiyaku, the dead bone pulse. No doubt that the imbalance from mixing the Uchiha and the Hyuga blood caused this, but resentment of their banishment as well. The Kagaya clan, however, in my time held their bloodlust and lust for battle more as a conservative tradition and their trademark, with an occasional clan leader trying to increase their savagery. As only 14 of them in all of their existence possessed Shikatsumiyaku. Their taijutsu prowess is undeniable, however, in other chapters, dedicated to them, I will give more space to this clan. If Senju Hagoromo fell in love with this woman, it could be that she was of the Kagaya clan, or at least offspring from some of the Kagaya's rape campaigns. In addition to having the blood of mad Kagayas who themselves have blood of the Uchihas and Hyugas, the next generations of Hagoromos inherited the madness of Kagayas and large chakra reserves of Senju. From one side, they could become one of the most powerful clans to ever live, but luckily for us, they were only mad savages like initial Kagayas, if a bit more intelligent than them. The main evidence to support this claim lays from the fact that the first matriarch of the clan had 2 marks on her forehead, as their revered illustration I found suggests. In no other clan can this be found, but that of the Kagaya. Imbalance by mixing the Uchiha and Hyuga blood created the Kagayas. Now, a new imbalance by mixing this fusion with Senju's created further imbalance, resulting in the Hagoromo clan. Case closed. Try picking mushrooms around your own fields. Naruto drank everything his ancestor wrote for a second. It made sense in a certain sort of way, as the first bloodlines were unbalanced initially, thus resulting in bloodline clans having to only marry among themselves to balance it out and keep it to themselves. It wouldn't be that different for the same thing to happen with more powerful and more mythological clans. Still, unlike those other clans, it seems that Senjus don't generally need to marry in clan only, but do need to be careful with whom they marry. Every man must have his own forbidden fruit to avoid, it seems. Try picking mushrooms around your own fields. Naruto had to laugh at his ancestors' advice. It wouldn't be possible now to do that, would it? But his clan didn't need to resort to incest to keep their blood pure in the first place. Hashirama's and Tobirama's mother was not from the Senju clan, yet 2 of them were hailed as the strongest Senjus to have ever lived, and one of the strongest shinobis to ever exist. Downfall of the Hagoromo clan. Hashirama's dream of creating a peaceful environment where children of all clans within the Land of Fire, and beyond as he likes to point out every single day, could grow up to actually become adults was coming to fruition. While it was only a matter of time before the Uchiha surrender, the Hagoromos still stood loyal to Madara in opposing Senjus, more than Madara's own clansmen did. If Hashirama actually wants his dream to come to realization, he should know that it cannot be realized with Hagoromo's walking around. Even surrendered Uchihas know that. As he is my brother, I know Hashirama better than anyone, no matter how many times he claims it is Madara who knows him best. Because I know him, I knew he would try to bring Hagoromo's to the fold eventually. But will the village and society work after that? The answer is no. The Senjus are not the only ones who are at war with Hagoromo's. While they are allied with the Uchihas, it is only for the purpose of defeating us, Senjus. The entire Land of Fire knows about the raids Hagoromo's have committed upon the clans of Yamanaka, Nara, Akimichi. Does Hashirama think those clans will be willing to join the village if it means living next to them? I had a problem with coming to the reality I'll live next to the Uchihas. And we fought them since the dawn of days. The Hagoromo clan had to fall before the actual talks about creating the village came to the wider masses. The attack on Hagoromo's was the first joint mission of the future village. Hashirama can think of this as a prototype. Allying with the Yamanakas, Naras and Akimichis brought downfall on the Hagoromo clan. During the battle, I sensed all of the ones we knew of within the compound. With my sensory skills, I tried to pinpoint if any of them were outside of the compound during the attack. And there were approximately 28 of them. None was spared in the following campaigns. The next few pages describe the battle with the clan itself. Tobirama Senju led it, with clan heads of Yamanakas, Naras, and Akimichis acting as support, supplanting the assault with their own clansmen, planning the attack and the subsequent execution. Everything went flawless, which made his great-grandfather even more famous through the elemental nations. But it also helped the creation of the village as 3 clans that helped Senjus accepted the invitation to join eventually. But before that came to be, first Madara had to be dealt with. For that reason, I can safely assume that the clan was completely eradicated during the attack and following campaigns with no survivors. I took their scrolls, records, and letters for further investigation. The most disturbing documents this clan had possessed was the idea and wish to have the ability to revive the dead. While no actual technique to do so has been found in their compound, theories and ideas to actually create it are there, and very close to accomplishing it. But I have to give credit where it's due. Had they actually created it, they would possibly be unstoppable. Still, it doesn't mean that I won't try to finish it. If Madara does decide to go rogue on the village eventually, it seems Izuna will have to beat it out of him. 4. Hunter-neens will be needed once the village is formed. Hunting the remaining Hagoromos made sure of that. It is almost certain that there will be rouges in the new system, but I will prevent the rise of renegades like Hagoromos were. Fighting with this clan solidified my belief that shinobi need to set aside their emotions within their profession and to control them outside of it. Naruto closed the book and looked at the dark ceiling of the secret library. He knew that the times of warring states were brutal, but he never thought his family was capable of exterminating another clan like they did to Hagoromos. He didn't feel any shame. Instead, it was satisfaction and pride. Standing up, taking the lamp with him, he walked over to the jutsu sections of the room. By his estimates and with the help of shadow clones, he would master all 5 steps of elemental manipulation for both his primary elements by the time he graduated from the academy, in 2 years. After that, he would focus more on Fuinjutsu and space-time ninjutsu. He would continue improving his Bukijutsu skills. He could be considered far better than average in those skills than your everyday ninja, but he should never stop training, same with Taijutsu. Although he would need to constantly train all 3 things: mind, body, technique. Genjutsu, he would probably never be able to master to its full potential, which would include lower-ranked ones. The Kyuubi's chakra constantly expanded his already large reserves. For him to be able to use Genjutsu normally like everyone else, he would need to find a way to either completely synchronize his chakra with that of the Kyuubi or to separate it, which would include reinforcing the seal. Well, the second option is out of the question, as he was glad to have his reserves expanded, while the first one could cause potential damage to his mind with the influence of the Kyuubi. Jiraiya had told him that Jinchurikis could accomplish good chakra control even with the amount they had thanks to their Biju. But for some reason, it was different in his case. It was either due to the seal that he had been draining the Kyuubi's chakra and expanding his chakra coils, or the Sly Fox was just being an asshole and wanted to mess with him. In the long run, this wasn't as bad as it seemed at first. While he couldn't use every genjutsu that he got his hands on, only B rank and higher for him. Well, he could already use some of those as they weren't hard to master once you got the theory right. The Bringer of Darkness technique and the Temple of Nirvana technique he had already learned. Those were probably the strongest genjutsus outside of those of the Uchiha and Kurama clans. Those under B rank were not important, but it was a slight punch on his pride that he couldn't use them. Fuinjutsu was an interesting topic for many reasons. After the creation of the village, Senju Tobirama had created a seal he marked on his heart, which would in turn, in conjunction with his own chakra, protect his entire body with a layer of chakra that would prevent the Sharingan user from seeing the way chakra was molded in the user's body, thus being unable to copy the techniques the seal user would do, while the Byakugan user couldn't see chakra points. Later only remained a theory. As a proud clan, the Hyugas would never admit deficiency of their eyes, especially during the early days of the village. 5. Ability to revive the dead. Naruto remembered that section from the book. If Hagoromo's had manuscripts to create that jutsu, or at least its prototype, no doubt Tobirama finished it, just as he said he would. If his jab at reviving the deceased brother of Madara Uchiha was any indication. Even if he didn't know every jutsu or information from this room, Naruto did inspect all the bookcases in detail. But aside from few mentions here and there was nothing about this Edo Tensei. The Night Aim either hid it well, or never actually created it, aside from that one jab at Madara. Maybe it is better that way. Chapter 3, and now it begins. Forests outside of Konoha, March 8th, Naruto, age 12. Calmly drawing his bow, Naruto concentrated on his target at hand. A rather large wild boar, to be more precise. Target was around 50 meters away from him. Soon, the boar noticed him and turned towards him, preparing to attack. But that was all that Naruto needed. As the boar turned towards him, so did his head at the front, exposing his weak point, the eyes. Naruto let loose of his arrow, enhanced with chakra, and it hit the boar straight in the eye, instantly killing him. He approached the downed animal and waited for a moment for the remaining life to leave it. As he waited for the process to finish, Naruto focused on his sensory abilities to pinpoint if the boar was sick previously. As an omnivore type, the wild boar could very well eat anything his mouth could devour. Healthy, Naruto concluded, after which he proceeded to unseal his equipment for meat preparation. As he sat down his equipment, in the distance 3 men stood, watching quietly as Naruto did his work. "You thought him well, Kosuke," Hiruzen complimented. "He knows how to act in the wilderness, with nothing but his ability to hunt as a primary tool. It will use him one day, that's for sure. He uses his sensory skills for something like this. I'm amazed. If I ever take him for a training trip, I'll make sure he's the one hunting our meal," Jiraiya commented with a smirk on his face. "You honor me, Hiruzen Jiraiya-kun," Kosuke said. "But all I did was point Naruto-kun in the right direction, just like with his shinobi training." "You are being too humble, old friend. Naruto-kun would not be the person he is today if you didn't guide him," Hiruzen told him. "He became good shinobi, but more importantly, he became a good man." He smiled. "We'll fully test him later on. Let's go and see how he's doing," Jiraiya suggested. With Naruto . Skinning and cleaning the boar was not a pleasant task, but it was a fulfilling one. The meat was delicious, especially when grilled. The boar this big will no doubt taste great once he was prepared. While he was slicing the now shaved skin of the boar, one of his other clones was preparing the fire. Another one was helping him, and the last one was storing the separated meat for later use. If he periodically ate this, it could last him for nearly 1 year. He hunted wild boars before, but they were much smaller than this one. "Something smells really delicious here," voice of his godfather trailed in the distance. "You could at least help, it would be ready much faster." Naruto pretended to be annoyed. The division of labor was a key to a successful economy. Preparing a dinner from a beast this large was no exception. "Not a chance," Jiraiya said. "This is part of your test after all. What kind of tutors we would be if we helped you now." "No need to act all smart with me, Uncle Jiraiya. I know it's a test," said the smirking Naruto. In the meantime, Jiraiya just pouted, while Hiruzen and Kosuke watched in amusement. For all his serious attitude, Naruto was more relaxed with them, especially Jiraiya. As Jiraiya said, "We will test all that you have learned until now, Naruto-kun. But first, let's eat," Hiruzen said. As they ate, four men talked about various things, from their battles and missions during the 3 wars, to even Jiraiya's books. Hiruzen and Jiraiya at least did. During that time, Naruto's clones stored the remaining meat to his scrolls, while the 4 men held grilled meat at the skewer atop of the campfire. "Naruto," Jiraiya said with a serious expression. From his seat at the log near the fire, Naruto looked up, still holding the skewer with grilled meat he was about to eat. "What is it, uncle?" It was not like Jiraiya to suddenly turn serious from such a carefree situation. Naruto didn't sense anyone else nearby, so the attack was not a possibility. "As you know, as Konoha's Jinchuriki, your status should have been a secret until someone rattled it up to the general populace," Jiraiya began. Naruto simply nodded. He was told that before even the potential suspects by the Sandaime. When the villagers found out, Sensei did everything in his power to stop the information from leaking out to the other nations. But as there were some merchants from the outside during that time in the village, probably well-hidden spies too, there is a high possibility that the other villages know about you. Naruto grunted in affirmation and Jiraiya continued, while the other 2 men listened in silence, both having serious expressions on their faces. As there is a possibility that they know about it, there is also a probability that some dangerous missing nins know about it too. I'm talking about the Akatsuki organization composed of 10 S-rank missing nins. Since you mentioned them, I'm probably one of their targets, right? It was not hard to figure it out, Naruto mused. What a 10 rogues could do with the power he had was anyone's guess, yet confusing at the same time. Indeed, Jiraiya nodded. They won't start collecting tailed beasts for some time, maybe even years before they do. I don't know what they plan to do with them or how do they plan to keep them in their control. But if you ever meet someone wearing a black cloak with red clouds on it, during your missions, run. It was not advice. It was an order. Naruto was silent for a moment, before nodding. It was strange seeing his godfather this serious, but if he was worried, then he should be too. Do you know any of their members? 2 of them. They usually work in pairs of 2. The only one I know of, however, are the Hoshigaki Kisame and Uchiha Itachi, and they are paired together. Naruto widened his eyes. He had heard some stories about the monster of the hidden mist, but to this day he never would have thought he would be partnered with the Konoha's infamous clan killer Uchiha Itachi. The more he thought about it, the more dread arose within him. If the 2 of them were paired, then there is a possibility that he would be their target. Itachi was a former ANBU and he knew Konoha's defenses, maybe even to bypass them. And he probably knew many things about him as well. For a short time, he was one of Naruto's guardians when Kosuke was away. The memories Naruto had of the Kinslayer was that of a distant, but kind all the same young boy, old as Naruto was now. Do you know any of the other members? Surely there are some indications of who could join them. Naruto queried, trying to clear his mind. Unfortunately, I don't, Jiraiya replied with a frown. That was one of the more considerable recent problems for him. While Itachi reported that Kisame was paired up with him and of their task of currently only tracking down the Jinchurikis, there was nothing more. Aside from the fact that they are still a few years behind their original goal and won't start hunting them for the time being. It was infuriating, as now he did not know if Itachi could be trusted completely. For all his talk about being loyal to Konoha, a lack of more detailed information was suspicious. It could be that he cooled off after the massacre and started regretting his decision to ally with Konoha over his own clan and family. Killing off his clansmen, including children, was no easy task. Easy task? Jiraiya thought bitterly. While he didn't like the Uchihas all that much, he respected many of them. That was one of the reasons why no one would suspect Itachi of being a double agent. Maybe he was getting too paranoid. But still, the lack of informations regarding the other members, or at least the leader's village of origin, was irksome. He would need to contract Itachi again. Soon. I'll try to find out more about them in the following months. Jiraiya promised. And he would deliver it. This wasn't just to protect Minato's only son. but it was for the safety of Konoha and the entire world. There was a familiar sense of dread of who could be the leader of the Akatsuki. But for the world of it, Jiraiya couldn't put from where that feeling came from. Okay, by the way, who is going to test me? Naruto asked. This was one of the reasons why the old man wanted to have this picnic. At this, Jiraiya stood up smiling and pointing his thumb at himself. But before he could say anything, Sarutobi interrupted him. That would be me. You, old man? You're joking, right? Naruto asked surprised. And judging from Jiraiya's and Kosuke's expression, they didn't expect this either. Yeah, what's the deal, sensei? I thought I would be the one to do it. Jiraiya questioned. I don't remember saying that. Besides, this is a nice opportunity to test this new generation myself. It is up to Naruto and his peers to carry on the will of fire one day after all, said the smiling Hiruzen. Very well then, Naruto conceded. Hiruzen nodded and took off his Hokage's robes, revealing his battle armor. I thought this was a simple test, not a battle to defend the village, old man. You can never be sure when the war will erupt or when the village will be endangered. It is the duty of the Hokage to always be prepared, Sarutobi said. Indeed, replied Naruto, unsealing some of his shinobi gear from one of his scrolls in the meantime. One katana and pair of fingerless, chakra-channeling gloves. With them, his hits would be more damaging if he managed to land them. Sarutobi in turn summoned his personal summon, Monkey King Enma. A summon? Isn't that an overkill for a simple test? Naruto asked. You don't want me to summon Gamma Bunta, do you? Ha! Hiruzen exclaimed. Feel free to do so, although I don't know if the Chief of Toads would appreciate it. You got me there. In the distance, Jiraiya and Kosuke stood looking at the clearing where Naruto and Sarutobi stood opposite of each other. He could summon some other toad, if not Gamma Bunta. He doesn't want to hold back at all, it seems. And from the looks of it, the old man doesn't want to either. Kosuke nodded. It looks like they will start with the simple weapon spar. It has been a long time since Hiruzen summoned Enma. Is it not? Indeed. Last time it was when Orochimaru fled the village, Jiraiya said, his mood turning sour at the memory of his Rouge teammate, but he quickly pushed thought aside. This was not the moment to sulk and brood. Not everyone gets an opportunity to be tested by the current god of shinobi. How do you think Naruto will fare with sensei in weapons combat? Kosuke? Hard to tell. If I'm being honest with you, Jiraiya-kun, Kosuke began seriously. I know Naruto-kun is very proficient in kenjutsu, but it all depends if Hiruzen is holding back or if he ever stopped practicing with his boa staff. In any case, we'll see for ourselves now. I can't remember when was the last time I saw sensei in combat. This will be great to watch. I just hope he goes easy on the kid in ninjutsu. Oh! Kosuke laughed. You underestimate Naruto-kun there. You don't have much faith in our students? Do you, Jiraiya-kun? Oh, I have enough faith in him, all right? Jiraiya smirked. Still, I shudder when I remember how sensei used to test my team when I was younger. We'll find out soon if Hiruzen has lost his touch or not. In the meantime, at the clearing separated from each other by 20 meters, Naruto and Sarutobi stared at each other. Hiruzen already had Enma transformed into his adamantine staff form, while Naruto stood in his place, katana in his right hand, resting its steel on his left, positioned just above his face. Since this is but a simple test, we are going by different fields, right? Not a full-out fight, in which I would probably be crumpled over. Old man didn't get his position for nepotism or anything else. He deserved his position and has proven to be a great leader and a shinobi. His reputation was probably one of the reasons why Konoha survived for so long after the Nine-Tails attack and in turn not being attacked by the other villages. Hyuga affair being the only exception due to the Raikage's greed. Indeed, I want to test every field you studied. You'll soon find why I'm called the professor in addition to the god of shinobi, my boy, Hiruzen said. Bring it on, old man. Just don't break a hip or spine. Naruto taunted, smirking in the process. Picking on the elderly, huh? Sarutobi replied. Let's show him why our generation shouldn't be underestimated, Enma. If only you were this enthusiastic when you cornered Orochimaru. Enma thought, no point in sulking now. I want to see how much did Minato's boy grew up. Lead on, then. For a moment they were silent and unmoving, that is until Sarutobi decided to go first. The elderly take precedence, as they say. He attacked Naruto with his adamantine staff, causing the Senju to take a completely defensive position. He really doesn't hold back. Slamming his staff towards Naruto's head, for a moment Sarutobi was afraid that he went too far. That is, until Naruto's sword appeared above his head, blocking the staff. Naruto held the hilt of his sword in his right hand, while his left one was pushing the edge of the steel by the end, upwards, giving him the balance needed to block the attack. Seeing this, Sarutobi slid his staff down, crouched, and went to attack Naruto's legs. Fortunately for Naruto, he saw this and jumped, evading the attack. You are good at blocking the attacks, Naruto-kun. But let me see some of your own skills. It has been a long time since I saw Tobirama-sensei's Kenjutsu style, and I know you are proficient in it. Naruto grunted and went for an assault. Just like he was adept at defense with a sword, so was the old man with his staff. Attack went for a minute or so until Sandaime smiled and went for his own attack. He is good. Dare I say, in a few years he will be without a competition. All he needs is experience and height. Hiruzen thought, amused. In the end, Sarutobi managed to kick the sword out of Naruto's hand, positioning his boa staff under his chin. Naruto smiled. I see now why they call you the professor. And I can see why Kosuke and Jiraiya say you are a prodigy with no match in your generation. Sarutobi complimented. Let us go with ninjutsu, genjutsu, and taijutsu at the same time for the next test. I want to see you go all out on me. With pleasure, grinned Naruto. And so they began. First with taijutsu, where even with his amazing speed, Sarutobi was able to counter Naruto's hits, but at the same time he found it hard to land stronger strikes on him. Maybe we should include resistance seals into the academy's curriculum from now on, don't you think? Naruto asked. Indeed we should. That is if children don't quit the academy after the first week with such training. First with ninjutsu, Naruto thought as he went through the few hand seals and exclaimed. Wind style, drilling air bullet, inhaling the air into his stomach, then pounding it and sending the cannon like air towards Hiruzen, who evaded it. It was followed by the 3 additional attacks which Hiruzen managed to evade as well. Attacks themselves ended up hitting the small rock hill behind the Sandaime, causing the small crack holes to appear in it. Hiruzen didn't waste his time waiting for Naruto to attack again. So he went through his own hand seals, exhaling, fire style, fire dragon flame bullet. His dragon made of fire flew quickly towards Naruto, and for a moment, Sarutobi was again afraid that he went too far. That is, until he saw the defensive barrier of water surrounding Naruto. Just like Tobirama-sensei, Hiruzen thought nostalgically. Naruto made one shadow clone after the fire attack, while Hiruzen went for another taijutsu attack until darkness started surrounding him. Sensei's Infinite Darkness Genjutsu. 1. Genjutsu, Bringer of Darkness Technique. Naruto's clone muttered as he made a tiger seal. Naruto himself went for an attack himself while the clone stood at his place. It was much easier to hit the old man now as he couldn't see anything. The infinite darkness was hard even for the Uchihas to escape from. But there was a slight downside of the jutsu. Enemy, if trained well enough, could sense the attacks coming at him, as the Sandaime did just now. He managed to land few minor hits enhanced with his chakra on Naruto, but the darkness still remained. So he left a clone in charge of maintaining the darkness, while he himself went for the attack. Hiruzen concluded. Smart move. He then charged and attacked the clone, dispelling him and the darkness around him. Guess you figured it out. How to break off from the illusion? Naruto asked. You have vast knowledge, my boy. But the knowledge itself is only a puddle without the experience to back it up. You will learn that in time. After that, they went to the spar for another 15 minutes. Before long, the Sandaime placed his kunai under Naruto's neck, smiling and saying, I win. Naruto could help but grin. The spar was amazing and he conceded defeat. They sat near the fire once more after the fight. Hiruzen wanted to give his own reassessment of Naruto's skills. I must say that I'm not only impressed but also proud of you as well, Naruto-kun, Sarutobi said. Naruto couldn't help but feel proud too. He was many times complimented, even grudgingly by some of his peers or some academy's teachers. But this was different. He supposed this was a feeling when a grandfather was proud of his grandson. It was just like when Kosuke complimented him for mastering his affinities, or when Jiraiya praised him for his advancement in Fuinjutsu. I will never get tired of it. Thank you, Hokage-sama. Suddenly getting formal? No need to do that, my boy. This won't go to your record or anything, Sarutobi said. So what is your final grade, old man? This time it was Jiraiya who approached them with Kosuke beside him, who asked the question, impatient to know what his sensei would say about his godson's skills. From what he saw from the hill with Kosuke, Naruto could easily advance to the rank of Tokubetsu Jonin. Granted, he didn't have the experience necessary, but still, if Itachi was in the ANBU at this time and Kakashi himself a Jonin in his own right, there weren't many obstacles for Naruto to advance easily and become one. I know what you all are thinking, Sarutobi began. You really are skilled, Naruto-kun, but you will need experience if you want to advance quickly through the ranks. Your skills in Kenjutsu are easily near the Jonin level, and your mastery of the wind and water element is something I haven't seen in a long time. You've been spending much time in your library, and you don't hold back any punches, Gramps. Your skill in Bojutsu would have left me with months-long bruises, had I didn't have the Nine Tails to heal me, Naruto added, rubbing his arms and tights in the process. While the damage itself was not very dangerous and with the fox healing him would heal him completely in a day, there was no doubt about the old man's skills as the muscles were still sore. Well, thank you, Naruto-kun, Hiruzen replied. And just like Minato and Tobirama-sensei, I can see you are going to be a devil at speed. And with the Bringer of Darkness technique, I won't have to worry about your lack of skills in that regard. By the way, how many genjutsus do you know? 7 in total, Naruto said. The Bringer of Darkness is the strongest genjutsu I know. I have 1 more A rank and the other 5 are B rank. Lower than that is borderline impossible for me to use, just like the clone jutsu. Genjutsus in general wasted little of chakra. That's why they were one of the favorite tools for the Uchiha and Kurama clan. And the favorite tool for women. Sarutobi nodded with a serious expression on his face. With the amount of chakra Naruto had, it would be hard for him to use the low-rank techniques as they required too little chakra. And while he could see that Naruto had very good chakra control, it was still impossible. How would Naruto develop had that incident at the playground never happened? Sarutobi shuddered at the thought. It could have been his biggest shame if he left Naruto to grow by himself, without an adult figure in his life. Thought that he initially considered doing that brought a great sense of shame to him. Even with all the hardships he endured, Naruto never went towards the path of darkness, becoming a good shinobi and an even better man in the process. That was something he wanted Kosuke to do when he assigned Naruto to his care, and was glad his old friend accomplished his task without downsides. I must also thank you, Kosuke. You really did a great job in being Naruto-kun's caretaker. The eternal genin who was silent thought the conversation smiled and gave something of his famous humbleness. Thank you for your praise, Sandaime-sama. But I did nothing aside from giving few pointers here and there. All his skills are directly coming from his own hard work and family's legacy. The 3 other men cited. Kosuke was infamous for his humble attitude. As ages go by, you still remain the same, my old friend, Sarutobi said with a smile. Sometimes I wish more people would have been that way. Memory of his prodigious student appeared before him, but just as fast it disappeared. You shouldn't beat yourself over that, sensei, Jiraiya added. I certainly don't. Anyhow, let us not jump from the subject. Right? As I said, your mastery of your affinities is nothing but amazing, and your use of them during the battle is at its place. With all your skills at where they are, I would say you will quickly advance throughout the ranks. You should be within the year. After all, in agreement with our allies of Sunagakure and few other minor villages, Chunin exams will be held in Konoha in about 6 months after you graduate. So we won't have to risk exposing your identity in a potentially hostile environment. Now, regarding your teammates, Sarutobi trailed off, lighting his pipe in the process. I'm placing you under Kakashi. He told me long ago he wanted to be your Jonin sensei once you graduate, but as you're going to be the rookie of the year, I was going to place you under his jurisdiction in any case. Naruto nodded. He already knew Kakashi. He was a student of his father back in the day. While he usually showed a lazy attitude towards his surroundings, he was interested in teaching him, helping him with Rasengan training, particularly when Kosuke was away on one of his border inspection missions. Who are my other teammates? Naruto asked in the meantime. Hiruzen was silent for a moment before answering. Uchiha Sasuke is one of them. Naruto simply stared at Sandaime, as did Jiraiya and Kosuke. Are you sure that's wise, sensei? Jiraiya questioned. From what you told me, he is unsociable as it can get, even for the Uchiha standards. And as Itachi is in the organization that is hunting Naruto, there is a chance they cross their paths. I had no other choice but to place him under Kakashi, Jiraiya. Sasuke-kun has the potential to awaken his Sharingan, and Kakashi would have to teach him anyway. There is no one else. If he awakens it. Many Uchihas did not. Jiraiya retorted. But I guess it won't change your mind, right, sensei? It is also for another purpose. At this, the three men looked up towards him. Naruto-kun, no offense, but it is also for your temporary safety. While I know you are strong, it is because of your status. Being Konoha's Jinchuriki, it is up to Kakashi to calm you with his Sharingan if you start losing control of the Ninetales. Do you understand? Naruto nodded calmly. That will only last while you are Genin, as I have no intention of having Kakashi babysit you all the time. Aside from getting the experience on these missions with your team, you will also need to learn how to cope with the real life of shinobi. I know you already drank every book about emotions that Tobirama Sensei wrote, but the theory is different from action. Again, Naruto nodded in understanding. It is no problem, although I have never spoken to the fox, and quite frankly I have no intention of doing so. I was thinking of going with it like my mother and Mito-sama did. Maybe you could, but then again, the seal Minato designed was there in order to help you to control the fox's power if ever need be. Jiraiya added his 2 cents. Seal on your stomach helps expand your already large chakra reserves, and it will only continue growing. It might be prudent that you learn to control at least some of its powers, especially to help you against the Akatsuki if they corner you. I'd rather not, but I see your point, uncle. Naruto conceded. And who is to be my other teammate? It has to be a kunoichi, right? Correct, Sarutobi said. I originally thought about placing Yamanaka Ino with you, but I do not break off traditional Ino Shikacho trio. It has proven itself effective for centuries, and I hope it remains for the centuries to come. Shikamaru told me once he was going to be placed on the same team with her and Choji. He couldn't help but complain it would be troublesome to have a Sasuke's fangirl to nag him all the time. He snorted in the end. Typical Nara, I guess, Hiruzen mused. My other option was the Hyuga heiress, Hinata. She had the second highest practical score after Ino. But there's a slight problem there. He trailed off. You mean the fact she's deadly afraid of me? Naruto blankly stated. While the rest of his classmates got used to his presence even with all the gossip that ran around the village, Hinata was still frightened of him. For reasons completely unknown to Naruto, but he could guess. I spoke with her father, Hayashi, and he confined me with some informations regarding her attitude towards you. It seems that the young Hinata was a witness to the incident at the playground, and quite frankly, it traumatized her of your presence. Does Hayashi blame me for her timid behavior then? Naruto asked with annoyance in his voice. It would be really troublesome if he got on the wrong foot with other clans, especially clan heads. No, that is a completely different manner of problem within the Hyuga clan itself, Hiruzen answered him. I decided to go with Haruno Sakura, the third strongest kunoichi of your class. Strongest is the generous word, old man, Naruto said. Sakura is a smart girl and her theoretical results are always at the top beside mine and Sasuke's. Yes, but she is rather weak in the physical department. Indeed, your homeroom teacher, Sador-chan, told me of this strange phenomenon among the young post-war kunoichis. Many of them get starstruck by the most popular boy in their class. The one who usually comes from the great clan background. Strangely enough, your class had rather high scores from the boys, much better than the other classes in years. Sarutobi rubbed his chin as he said the last part. That is because of the Sadaru-sensei. Naruto answered him now with a hint of laughter in his voice. Every one of my classmates, including Shikamaru, loved getting a pat on the head and friendly smile from her, whenever they would do something right or correct. At this, Jiraiya raised his eyebrows and whistled. Oh, are you suggesting we should place a female kunoichis in charge of every future class from now on? I never took you for a pervert, Naruto. I'm not like you, pervy sage, Naruto deadpanned. But as you mentioned, maybe we should. I could even see Sasuke sometimes getting more relaxed when he got praise from Sadaru-sensei. See, what did I tell you, old man? We should definitely go with that route. Jiraiya would have continued rambling about his perverted dreams, had Sarutobi didn't smack him on the back of his head. We can talk about that some other time, Jiraiya. This is more important. Hiruzen scolded as Jiraiya pouted. As I was saying, the quality of the new kunoichis has drastically decreased in the years after the Third Shinobi World War, Sarutobi said. For that, I don't have many options of giving you this placement, and I have to look to somehow balance out the rest of the teams. While you and Sasuke-kun are exceptional in both physical and theoretical departments, Sakura-chan is only in theoretical. It should balance out the teams and prevent the wider circles of shinobi populace to be discontent with this decision. I understand, old man, Naruto affirmed. But is there something more with this? I figure you wouldn't simply tell me this in order for me to know about my team before everyone else. Indeed, there is more to this, Naruto-kun, Hiruzen nodded. I personally selected this team as part of Kakashi's assignment, as well as your first long-term mission.
I'm listening.
Uchiha Sasuke is a flight risk, Sarutobi bluntly stated. He has no close connections to anyone in the village, and I'm afraid he would try to leave the first chance he gets if he doesn't get enough training and feels we are somehow holding him back from his quest of killing Itachi. There is a high possibility he leaves the village. And I hope I don't have to tell you how much it would hurt the prestige of Konoha if that happens. It deteriorated with the time when much of your clansmen died in the wars, culminating with Minato's death during the Kyuubi's attack. But even still, we survived by some sort of miracle. He finished gravely. Naruto was silent for a moment, contemplating what the old man told him. While he wasn't a friend with Sasuke, or even a close acquaintance, he did respect him for what he went through. Despite the history of their families, Naruto would not blame Sasuke for the blood he carried in his veins and hoped that Sasuke would do the same. We are similar in more ways than not, and if the legends are true, we share a common ancestor. I accept this mission, Hokage-sama, Naruto said formally. Sarutobi smiled, as did the other two men. But I'm not sure how am I supposed to help here exactly. You don't expect me to train him, right? No, of course not. Your task will be more as a temporary goal that Sasuke needs to surpass in his mind. I refrained from giving him a personal tutor because I wanted to give him space to mourn his family for a time and hopefully create new bonds with the village. Training him early would only make him more detached, as he would not have anything in the village holding him to it. Sasuke needs to see that he can be both loyal shinobi of Konoha and strong at the same time. That's where you come to the picture. In Sasuke's and in the eyes of most people, you are but a simple orphan, ignoring your other attributes. Do you understand what I need you to do, Naruto-kun? You want me to become an inspiration for Sasuke to remain loyal to the village. By presenting myself as a clanless orphan who is stronger than him, he can see that the village won't hold him back. Although, I don't think it is up to me or Kakashi to make him loyal to the village, but up to himself. If he leaves, then it won't be anyone's fault but his. I do know that, Naruto-kun, and for that reason, this won't go to your file as an official mission. Sarutobi told him a bit too gladly. Naruto nodded in appreciation anyway. However, but because of that, you won't be getting paid either. It's only fair to do so, isn't it? I guess, Naruto muttered. Figures he would do that. I only hope Sakura becomes serious with her training, although from what I see, I might need to jump in there and make her serious. It was true. He might need to do it. However, how to actually do it was a question to be answered for another time. Kosuke, on the other hand, had an answer right away. Try not to create a wrong reputation of yourself while doing so, Sarutobi said to him with a laugh, as they continued eating the remaining meat. As they ate, Kosuke decided to give him his own advice or two. You must not become too proud, greedy, and angry when you deal with this mission once you graduate, Naruto-kun. His surrogate uncle told him seriously. It is true that you may face hardships when making your teammates go with your flow, but remember that patience is one of shinobi's greatest virtues. Becoming too proud of your abilities, discarding your comrades will only be your undoing. Never forget that. Kosuke sat a bit mournfully for the entire atmosphere around them. His words were true in any case, for Kosuke had to learn that lesson the hard way. Becoming too proud of his abilities and being sure he would be promoted to Chunin combined with the greed of a young mind coming from a non-clan background, wanting to prove himself equal to the clan-born shinobis, in the end, caused his comrades to die because of it. And that resulted in anger at himself for his pride and greed, compelling him to go almost suicidal for the sake of his other comrades of Konoha. I'm not saying you shouldn't be proud of yourself and your accomplishments, but don't let it go over your head. Kosuke finished. Tobirama was known as a proud man and it never held him back. More so, it made him an even greater shinobi. Pride and greed were in combination worse for a ninja to have than an ocean of emotions. I understand, uncle. I will do as you say. Kanahagakure no Sato, the Academy, April 1st, 9 a.m. Naruto sat on his usual seat in the classroom as the room filled in with potential future genins. Uncle Jiraiya left the village last week, promising he would commission a new battle armor for him, in the Land of Iron. Naruto hoped it would be ready for the next Chunin exams. Old man said they would be held in Konoha 6 to 7 months after he graduated. For now, Naruto was wearing a simple mesh gray shirt with bandages on his arms and black fingerless gloves that could channel chakra and strengthen his hits. And on top of it, black haori with white rope around his waist. The rest of his clothes consisted of dark blue flexible standard shinobi pants with bandages wrapped around his ankles and traditional shinobi sandals. On his forehead, he wore Konoha's forehead protector with a long black cloth tied around his head, too. A nice contrast to his sun-kissed blonde hair. Sadaru-sensei said he looked handsome wearing it. Naruto would miss Sadaru-sensei a lot. She never looked at him with contempt, even though she was slightly tense around him when everyone found out he killed 3 boys who bullied him. Old man probably explained everything to her as she was assigned to his class and there was never any problem with her. As he waited for the team assignment, the classroom began to be filled with other genin hoped to be. His future teammate, Sakura, was engaged in constructive debate with Ino on the subject. Who does Sasuke-kun like more? She will be handy. Not soon after, Sadaru-sensei arrived and gave her speech on how they are no longer simple academy students, but full-fledged ninjas of Konoha needing to take their duty towards their comrades and village seriously. Right, then let us begin with the team placements, Sensei announced as she began listing new teams and their team senseis, but Naruto already knew his. 2 hours later, they waited for their Jonin instructor to show up. The rest of the new genins had already left with their respective senseis, only Team 7 remaining in the classroom. Where the hell is our sensei? Sakura complained. He has a tendency of being a few hours late for most of his appointments. Naruto answered her in a slightly distant tone. Huh? What kind of ninja is he, if he is so sloppy? Unironically, one of the best that the village has to offer, he bluntly told her. Sakura looked skeptical, Sasuke even more than her, though both said nothing to that. Being the person who knew why Kakashi was late propelled Naruto to tell them, at least bits and pieces. I know him from before and he really is a great shinobi, so you don't need to worry about him being lame or anything. He has his own way of coping with the life he has and loses he has suffered. He finished with a sad look. His parents were among those Kakashi lost. Kakashi knew them better than Naruto ever would and might even suffer more from their loss than he did. Because even if they were his parents, Naruto never knew them, Kakashi however did. That still doesn't excuse him for making us wait this long. The Uchiha's Avenger said this time, uttering those words with a slight annoyance while turning his attention back towards a single on the wall in front of him, his hands folded in front of his mouth. Naruto shrugged it off. No point in arguing there. Kakashi would hopefully change his ways. Hopefully. The man was very keen on teaching Naruto. A few times he shadowed him over. At best, he would do the same with Sasuke and Sakura. As they waited, the three genins indulged themselves with their own favorite free-time activities. Sasuke brooded, Sakura gushed over him, and Naruto meditated. His chakra control constantly needed to be improved and kept in place. Meditation was a rather good way to help him do it. All three of them were quiet in their own way, until surprisingly Sasuke broke the silence with a question directed towards Naruto. "How are you so strong?" he asked without looking at him, simply staring at one dot at the wall as he did for the past hour. Sakura stopped daydreaming about Sasuke and looked towards Naruto with an unsure expression. Question was probably directed at him, she deduced. Naruto opened his eyes but remained silent. "Many reasons," was his answer. He did not know how to answer. "Many reasons?" "Yes." Naruto's blunt response forced Sasuke to turn around with an angry look. "You're obviously much better than me, or anyone else in this class and even the entire academy. Yet, you only come from a civilian background. I want to know, how? You know the shadow clone technique, yet you can't do a simple clone the rest of us are taught. How is that possible?" He hated to admit that, but for a long time, he has come to the realization that Naruto was far ahead of him. He needed to know why. Naruto briefly considered what type of answer he should give to Sasuke. He didn't need to make an excuse, but for the time being his identity was supposed to be a secret. The fact he was with the last Uchiha in the same team was both ironic and dangerous. The last loyal Senju and the last loyal Uchiha. It really was ironic. Their two clans spent most of the Warring States era killing each other, creating this village in order to stop the endless circle of conflict and destruction of their families. Yet now only two of them remained, and on the same team as well. A recipe for disaster. Depending on how the assignment Hokage gave him goes on, Naruto and Sasuke could lead to a new age of prosperity of both of their clans. Or they could lead the both of them on a path of destruction. While not as prejudiced as his ancestor, Tobirama Senju, Naruto did hold the slight wariness of the clan, of the so-called curse of hatred. Flashback. The 10-year-old Naruto sat in the secret room of his clan and read a book about the Uchiha clan and particularly their Sharingan. While his great-grandfather disliked Uchihas for their clan's enmity, he could give a credit to their strength where it's due, even grudgingly. His ancestor, however, hated the Sharingan, its background, the way it was needed to awaken it. The way Sharingan was awoken and his further manifestation was total opposite to everything Senju stood for. He read the following part of their ability section. A clan haunted by evil. No clan feels the love deeper than the Uchiha clan does. For that reason, they feel a need to suppress it. Once an Uchiha knows about love, all his previous senses are forgotten. One could say that love Uchiha's bear would go along the line with the love Senju's feel. But Uchiha's love is unbalanced. The greater the love they feel, the greater the possibility of it going out of control. When a person close to you dies, you feel a need to mourn. Some for a longer time, some for a shorter. You feel a need to prevent that from happening again if a person died violently. For Uchiha's result of that unbalanced love comes to fruition when that someone close to them dies. When they feel great agony over the loss of someone close, or just deep disappointment in themselves, chakra in their brain gets released, in turn, reacting to the optic nerves and changes the appearance in the person's eyes. A phenomenon called Sharingan. Eyes that reflect the heart. 3. End of the flashback. The old man said that Sasuke never showed any indications that he had awoken his Sharingan. He probably didn't, but for all intents and purposes he should have. There are some things you don't know about me, Sasuke, and it will remain like that for the time being. That is all I will say to you. He finally answered him. Sasuke was silent, but in the end, he accepted his answer and went back to his staring while Naruto went to his meditation, closing his eyes as he did. The atmosphere, however, remained a bit tense. Sakura, curious as she was, decided to ask Naruto a question that bugged her for a long time. Naruto, may I ask you something personal? At Naruto's raised eyebrow, Sakura proceeded to ask, is it true that you killed those 3 academy students, and why did you? The question ended quickly, as it seemed Sakura wanted it out of her mouth. Yes, was the only answer that came from Naruto. Sakura blinked, while Sasuke snorted so uncharacteristically for him. What a way to bond, Naruto inwardly mused. Do you guys know something about the Genin test? My parents told me it exists after we graduate. For Sakura asked again. It's true. The key of the test is to see if we have teamwork and to see if we are eligible to actually become full-fledged shinobis of Konoha. Naruto told her, trying to lift the tense mood. So only teamwork? But that sounds too easy. There has to be something more. It is only that. Any sort of test will probably try to force a disunity among us and see if we actually possess the will of fire. Basically, if we prove we do, we pass. Naruto answered and smiled as he sensed their sensei standing by the door for the duration of this conversation. Soon after, Kakashi entered through the door and presented himself with one of his usual goofy eye smiles. Sorry I'm late. Got lost on the road of life. Naruto smirked, Sasuke glared, and Sakura was ready to explode. Meet me at the roof in 5 minutes. Don't be late. And now it begins. Kanehagakure no Sato, the Hokage's Tower, Jonin Meeting Hall, 1 St. April, 8 a.m. The Sandaime Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, just finished announcing the placements for the new Genin teams. Sitting on his throne-like chair with the symbol of the will of fire standing tall behind him, he looked towards the 36 Jonins that would take over the same number of teams this year. 108 academy students had passed their exams, with only 12 failing this time around. They might quit or just take another year in the academy for the additional training. And from these 36 teams, some, once again, might return to the academy for another year. There are always such cases. In any case, he needed to make sure his Jonins knew of their duties regarding the new generation. Some would take a team for the first time, while others would just have to be reminded of certain things. As you now know of your potential teams, I must also brief you with your main duties regarding their training. You can implement your own style into it if you want, but what you're going to read in those envelopes in front of you is a must-do, regardless of your own ways on the matter. His Jonins, sitting on the floor in front of him, nodded in understanding, taking the envelopes in front of them and proceeding to read the contents. As some of them continued reading it, Sarutobi decided to give another one of his advice. As you all know, after the Uchiha clan's massacre, I, alongside with both the higher-ranked shinobi and the clan council, have decided to implement some changes to the academy's curriculum and the standard training of the shinobi forces that every active ninja of Konoha must abide by. He continued retelling them the story, not for the first time. And they had listened just as they had obeyed his orders. Both his Chunins and Jonins, Jonin senseis for the past 3 years, since this rule was passed, have upped the training of their students, which resulted in better performance of the new Genins. While the title of Chunin actually meant more than a simple promotion from being a simple non-Genin ninja wearing a fancy uniform. Now, the academy students had to know more advanced chakra control exercises of tree and water walking at the very least. It would save time during their Genin training. Among other things, Sarutobi thought. Sarutobi loathed that the Uchiha clan's massacre had a role in his wake-up call. But as they had lost a significant portion of their forces there, and given the reports from Jiraiya that Orochimaru was presumably building his own village, it was a necessity. Kanehagakure had always prided itself in being in favor of quality over quantity, in contrast to the Iwagakure's quantity and Kumo to an extent who favored the mix of both, resulting in the hybrid composition of the armed forces, depending on the time and the Reikage himself. They had faced some defection from a small number of ninjas, who abandoned the village in pursuit of their own selfish ambitions, for many years, and Hiruzen was adamant to lower that number as much as he could before his successor one day could take the mantle of the 5th Hokage. He had someone in mind, but for the sake of both his heir presumptive and the village, Hiruzen would warm this seat for a few more years if the heavens were kind on him. Ignoring Orochimaru, cases like Mizuki or Rokusho Aoi were threatening to the development of the future generations. He used the veteran shinobis and those who had decided to retire previously to form a special unit of the ANBUs for cracking down the potential spies and traitors. It was a risky move, for one could never be sure where a traitor would make his nest. And he was getting paranoid as the time went on. But he needed to. Too many incidents happened for the past 13 years for him to simply be laid back. Even so, the rooster for the academy staff had to be under constant surveillance. Mizuki and Aoi were the instructors at the academy, after all. Jennings now had to perform at least a minimum of the training regime required, one that he devised during each day of the training. 1. The starting date of their first mission was also arranged. It was a tradition for the Hokage to wish the new youth a bit of good luck, after all, and it would ease his schedule in the office a bit. Jennings, for the higher-ranked missions, had to perform various types of lower-ranked missions first, before they could be even signed in for the Chunin selection exams by their respective senseis or be promoted on the field if they were ready for it. In any case, they had to have the experience of understanding how border patrolling works, something he had to arrange with the Kunoichi village of Nadeshiko from the land of tea. It wouldn't do well for Konoha to get another one of their traditional international incidents or disputes on the table. Wars have been started for less. So the Kunoichis from Nadeshiko would know that Konoha means to have no military drills on their borders. And in turn, they would not try to snatch some of their young virgin genins or their senseis for their seed. He couldn't forbid them to interact during those encounters on the other hand. As Sarutobi mused about it in his mind, a longing wish to be young again filled his body for a brief moment. He mentally shook his head to forget about it. Genins would also need to know how escort missions are performed, delivery, interrogation, tracking, and so on. All those things they would have to learn. The experience on the field would help them advance further and help them stay alive. Quality over quantity. Turning his attention back to his jonins, he addressed them once more. Bear in mind that I will have someone report to me the progress of your students, so it would be in your best interest that you do not slack with their training and further education. Or even your own, for that matter. He warned them. We have been dealt with many heavy blows for the past decade and more. I don't want the village and its future to suffer because of it, or because of slothfulness of our own. It is up to us to leave a better world for the younger generations, and it is up to them to look at us as their role models. When you take them under your wings, you are not only making sure that the name of our village rises further, but also of your own families and yourself. His jonins nodded, with one of them raising their hands, wanting to ask the Hokage something. Iro Hakuin, Sarutobi said, granting the jonin opportunity to speak.
Hokage-sama.
The Hyuga jonin in question bowed slightly, proceeding to ask his question. Is there any particular reason why there was a so imbalanced team placement this year? I'm referring to the Team 7, under Jonin Sensei, Hataki Kakashi. Kakashi, for his part, turned his attention from his orange book and looked towards his Hokage, while the other jonins in room started whispering among each other, all of them wondering the same. That is classified information, though I have no doubt that many of you understand the reasons for such action, Hiruzen replied. However, you should know that I was the one who arranged the Team 7's membership for this year, and that it will not be changed, the Hokage answered. Shiranui Genma raised his hand this time, exclaiming his own curiosity after getting permission from the Hokage to speak. Considering the new arrangements for the genin training, Hokage-sama, are the teamwork tests to remain the same, or are we supposed to upgrade the difficulty? The Sandaime shook his head in negative. The tests, as you see them fit, are better if they remain the same. We have probably lost some good potential in the past because we sought to focus on the teamwork from our genins to be, without introducing them to the importance of the concept itself, while they were in the academy. For that, we have placed a bigger focus on that subject before their graduation. In the past, they wanted selectively to pass their students. Only those who figured out the meaning of their tests would pass. Now, on the other hand, by imparting into the young minds both the necessity and the positive sides of teamwork, they would pass with a better performance than they would have some 3 years ago or before. Previously, those who passed their Jonin Sensei's tests on the second time were the prime material for becoming the missing neens. Bitterness, anger, and shame all played their parts in corrupting their psyche. By ensuring they were familiar with the concept of teamwork early on, new shinobis would figure out the meaning of the test right away. For the most part, working together, they would pass. And when they pass, they would always remember that it was the teamwork who got where they were. There was a low-key chance for them to turn rogue. With this new module, they got better shinobis in training and more shinobis in numbers in turn. If that is all, I believe you have your future students to meet soon. I wish you all the best of luck. May the will of fire brighten your way and your future. The Sandaime finished with a smile, getting the chorus of, "Yes, Hokage-sama," as he did. With Kakashi. Hatake Kakashi walked towards his destination, the Konoha's Shinobi Academy. After Sandaime's briefing and spending 2 hours at the memorial stone in memory of his deceased teammates, he decided that it was a time to go. As he walked at a slow pace, he didn't even pick up his book to read. Contemplating on how he would train his team, he had no doubts they would pass. With Naruto on the team, it was expected. But his team also consisted of a self-centered Avenger and an Avengers fangirl. The orders from the Hokage were clear though. He was to be Sasuke's watcher, and in turn, he had to make sure that the last loyal Uchiha stayed loyal to the village. The Sandaime told him that Naruto also knew of his missions, so he would get some help there. If he was honest with himself, Kakashi didn't know what to do with Sasuke. With Naruto, all he had to prepare his mental state for the more advanced missions once he was promoted. It'll be fast. Minato-sensei's son was a prodigy, in a similar fashion to him and Itachi. Kakashi didn't know why he compared the sensei's son to one of Konoha's most infamous traitors. He knew Naruto for some time, and despite what he went through, he would remain loyal to the village. It was the only home he had and the only home he knew. In addition to that, he had few bonds within the village. The chance of him fleeing was slim if non-existent. But he had to be on alarm for his mental state now. Kosuke did a good job in any case. And with the inclusion of Jiraiya, all the initial suspicions flew away like wind. It was the total opposite to his other teammate. Sasuke. Sasuke is the problem. It was no secret to the shinobi population that the Uchiha clan as a whole liked keeping it to themselves regarding anything. Few exceptions existed, of course, but even they were in a minority in the entire clan. A curse of hatred, Minato-sensei once mentioned, regarding his teammate Obito as an exception to such a curse and a complete opposite to the general conduct of the said clan. Obito was a towering example of the will of fire in Kakashi's opinion. His unfortunate death established his esteem within Hataki's mind. Kakashi sighed as he stood in front of the door to the classroom his future team was currently in. Hearing Sakura questioning her teammates about the genin test, he didn't fight back the smile that was prowling onto his face. "I'll do this the right way. Obito, Rin, Minato-sensei." He decided that they waited enough. Opening the door, he walked inside, presenting himself with his usual goofy eye smile and lame excuse he always had. "Sorry I'm late. Got lost on the road of life." He could see Sasuke glaring in such a prickly way. Well, at least he can control himself, Kakashi thought. He could see Sakura being ready to explode. She'll be handy. And Naruto simply smirked. He knew about his coping mechanism at least. He would need to find another. Perhaps it was even the time to let go of the past and resentment of it. He needed to live by Obito's legacy, not drown in its memory. "Meet me at the roof in 5 minutes. Don't be late," he told them as he disappeared in a swirl of leaves. "I'll do this the right way from now on." 3 of them are the future. In the capital city of the Land of Iron with Jiraiya. Damn, I always forget how cold this land really is. The Toad Sage, Jiraiya of the Sannin thought as he walked over the snowy streets of the samurai homeland's capital city. His footprints were getting covered by the falling snow as he walked further and further through the town. Being deep in the mountains of the Land of Iron, it was expected. Still, it didn't mean that Jiraiya had to like it, but Naruto was rather adamant about getting a new armor for the Chunin exams. For all his talk about setting his emotions aside, Naruto has asked him to commission an armor set for his match and future missions. And from the Land of Iron of all places. Maybe it was a mistake to tell him about the quality of metal from this country. Jiraiya thought, even if I didn't, the kid would figure it out somehow. Name of the country aside. But the fire wasn't very common in the Land of Fire, affinity of their ninjas aside. Only when some sort of catastrophe happens. He wouldn't think that the iron in the Land of Iron was the best. Would he? As he walked through the snowy streets, Jiraiya had noticed that many people were uneasy as they were running amok. It was a Friday and the streets were busy with people going around on their way, scrambling around the food stores in order to acquire the goods that were usually unavailable. However, there were much more samurais and many more civilians than before, as Jiraiya recalled his past visits to this place. The capital city wasn't that populous in the past. A breach in the security? Most likely. Perhaps his old acquaintance would know something. Samurais didn't wage a war with neighboring countries in a long time. They must have experienced a population boom, he thought with a lecherous grin on his face. Not soon after, he reached his destination, the best armorsmith in the continent, Satamyan. Jiraiya walked inside the shop, a rather exuberant place. Well, he was always the type of guy to show off his fame and skills. It was a large building built in traditional architecture, like every other building in this country, with wooden dolls standing on the outside with a pair of different armors on them, signifying it was an armory, if a sign above the door was missed by a passenger by any chance. A bell ringed as he entered through the door, but no one came from behind the shop. Maybe he took a break? Jiraiya proceeded to look around the shop. Various types of battle gear were hanging around the room, both of the armor and regular weaponry. It took you long enough to come out, Jiraiya said, smirking as he turned around and faced an old man in his late 50s, of mid-height, bald of head and long black beard with a few shades of gray here and there and a pair of glasses on his eyes. It's not like anyone would dare to steal from here, not even ninjas. Even your kind has some sense of honor when it comes to business. The old man replied in a harsh tone, but his face immediately cracked a smile. It's good to see you, Jiraiya. How long has it been? 15 years? More. 13. It was just after the Third War, Jiraiya corrected, still smiling. It is good to see you, old friend. He approached Satamyan and they shook hands. It's good to see you too, Jiraiya. But tell me you're not commissioning something for any of your ninja wars. I don't want to have problems with Mifundano. Despite his calm demeanor, he gets prickly if I were to start dealing with you people during your fights. It's nothing of sort, Satamyan, Jiraiya said. I want to order an armor set for a boy of 13 to 17 age group, to last for a few years before he decides to buy a new one. He moved his hand to his pocket and pulled out a sheet of paper and handed it to the blacksmith. The sheet of paper contained the current measures of the armor set as well as the Senju clan insignia on its chest that Naruto wanted to be present. Hopefully, Satamyan would not recognize it. Taking the paper in his hands, the blacksmith nodded, but then widened his eyes suddenly. Or would you have some explainings to do, Jiraiya? The blacksmith said with furrowed eyebrows as he pointed a crest on a paper. The toad sage sighed. I can't say much for now. You'll hear the news in a few months anyway. Looking towards the old blacksmith and his skeptical face, Jiraiya sighed once more. Fine. How much? It'll be 600,000 Rio, Satamyan said. 600,000? Jiraiya shouted. What the hell? Since when did you get this expensive? And just to keep a secret? Ever since I'm dealing with shinobis. Don't worry, I won't say a word about your Senju boy to anyone. But, do you know about the bureaucracy I'll have to deal with in order to get you this set? All the material I need to buy first. Satamyan retorted. I assume your Senju boy wants it to be chakra enduring, right? It would be nice if you could arrange it, Jiraiya said with an automatic smile, but then turned serious. It won't cost more, right?
No worries, Jiraiya.
It won't. The price is just for the armor and the materials I need to buy first. The blacksmith said. But it'll take much longer for me to have it ready than usual, with this crisis we have at the moment. He grumbled at the end. So there was something suspicious happening. I was about to ask you regarding that. What's the deal? I don't remember samurais being this uneasy. Like ever. Jiraiya pointed out, crossing his arms. You guys don't go around waging wars on the neighboring countries. Is someone attacking you? There were more people than usual. So it wasn't a population boom. Maybe refugees from the battle-affected regions? Hardly, Satamyan muttered as he moved behind his counter. From what I have heard, there's a number of young children missing from the villages at the border with the land of rice paddies. Mifundano has sent a missive to the rice daimyo, but all he has got is a denial of such accusations. It gets worse as the rice country now has the hidden village, Otogekure no Sato. He sneered at the mention of that name. So those were the refugees. A new war. The land can never get rest, it seems. Jiraiya knew that while Satamune respected him and supplied him with the intelligence, during the Third Shinobi World War, he disliked the shinobis and what they stood for. While not a samurai himself, he had their sense of honor. And the two professions were so different from each other that it was a miracle how the blacksmith was friendly with him. Jiraiya guessed that saving another man from a group of rogue ninjas has never given a better result in the new friendship. A number of young children missing, Jiraiya muttered as he considered many options. There is only one man that comes to mind. You know something about that? Satamune raised his eyebrow as he typed the bill for the armor. Maybe. Jiraiya paused for a second as he closed his eyes. Before he fled Konoha, my old teammate Orochimaru was discovered experimenting on the young children, being responsible for their kidnapping, doing all sorts of experiments on them. If there is someone to be the prime suspect, it's him. I should have known it was one of your own doing that. Satamune snorted bitterly. Anyway, here's your bill. Give it to the kid that wants the armor. A 600,000 ryos. Naruto will have to take something from his inheritance for this. Not that it would harm his income in any case. I can have your word you won't mention anything about this armor to anyone? He needed to be sure. Naruto's heritage would be revealed anyway in a few months, but it was better to make sure the kid was safe until he got more experience. As safe as the life of shinobi could be. I'm not a woman, Jiraiya, nor do I have a benefit of being in their company as much as you do. But tell me this, who is the kid? Your old student's son. Satamune peeked from the side. Not telling. Jiraiya snorted as he started walking out of the shop. Jiraiya! Satamune called him once more before he left. Please go and see Mifundano regarding this. It'll mean much to us. He nodded. If Orochimaru really was behind all this, then it would be wise to ally with samurai to stop him. By the way, how long will it take you to finish that armor? A new schedule was needed to arrange his traveling plans. Many things would need to be checked. Money to be picked and messages to be delivered. Come back in about a month. It should be ready by then. A month to finish all this. I should get to a nearby onsen before I leave. Jiraiya thought mischievously. Some pleasure for his soul won't harm anyone after all. And it would be good to get a little warm from all this cold. Well then, see you around, old friend. Konohagakure no Sato, April 9th. A week has passed since they became genins, and today would be the first day when they would take their first mission. Ever since the day they passed their test, before starting the training, Kakashi-sensei had them do the new training regime for genins that was required: 200 laps around the training field, 100 push-ups, the same number of sit-ups and back stretchers. And that was only for warm-up. It wasn't a problem for Naruto to do them, and neither was for Sasuke. Sakura, however, got tired quickly. She would have to go step by step in order to reach the required 100 without much fatigue. Today was also the day when they would have their first mission. For the duration of the first week, they were doing mostly team-building exercises with an occasional spar between the members of the team. But now, Kakashi-sensei has deemed them ready for them. While a bit disgruntled for the lack of a more practical side of training, Naruto understood the necessity of the training their sensei had put them up to. All three genins had different worldviews and values. While they passed their bell test, it was due to Naruto, who knew the true meaning behind it. Journals are certainly one way to gather the necessary information that would help you later on. And pieces of information are sometimes life saviors on the battlefield. Sakura still had her fangirl moments, but she had the potential to be broken off from that persona. Their missions would no doubt be a great wake-up call for her to take things more seriously. Albeit she already did, if only for the sake of Sasuke noticing her. Because as Naruto told her, she needed to ditch her diet and eat more in order to get the Uchiha's attention. A bit of manipulation, as he had ignored her while she was skinny. If she got more weight, he might start giving her actual attention. Although it required to have a bit of persuasion from Sasuke's side. For now, he should ignore her if she would pester him with anything other than ninja training. What do you think our first mission will be? Sakura asked her teammates as they walked towards the academy where they would receive their first mission. Something within the village, most likely, Naruto said. Sensei? Sakura directed her question towards Kakashi. Naruto is correct. Most of your initial missions will be within the village, he told her. Only later on, when I deem you experienced enough for the higher-ranked missions, I can talk with the Hokage-sama and ask him to allow it, which will most likely happen soon. Kakashi thought with a hint of pride. Despite their differences, the three of them showed great teamwork during their training, even if for the sake of just finishing the task early. Sasuke was a bit distanced from his teammates, but Sakura and Naruto at least had a cordial relationship. He noticed during the first 3 days of their team's existence, Sakura would occasionally be tense around Naruto, but fortunately, she broke from that shell fast as she got to know him better. Team 7 reporting for our first mission, Hokage-sama, Kakashi said as he and his team entered the mission assignment room, bowing slightly to the Sandaime Hokage who sat behind the desk with various papers on it. Mission requests most likely. Ah, it's good that you came. We have many D-rank missions for today. Some teams already came and picked them up already, Sarutobi said as he skimmed throughout the paper with the list of missions for rookies. Here we are. We have 1. Finding a missing cat. 2. Cleaning the garden. 3. Babysitting 3 children of the merchant from the capital that is visiting the village. We'll take the finding a missing cat mission, Hokage-sama. Kakashi interrupted, seeing his genins getting a little impatient. Sasuke and Naruto at least did. Sakura had a confused expression on her face. Very well. Here is the picture of a cat. Sarutobi handed the photo to the Kakashi. And here is the list of locations where he could be at the moment. Thank you, Hokage-sama. Team 7, let's go. Finding a missing cat? Sasuke sneered once they exited the building. Exactly, Sasuke, Kakashi said flatly. Consider this as a training for tracking mission that you might encounter in your career. HN. He turned his head to the other side as he gave his unhappy grunt. Shouldn't a Team 8 be better suited for this type of mission? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. They are a tracking team officially, after all. Maybe, but I want you to get experience in different fields before we embark on higher-ranked missions, Kakashi said nonchalantly. At Naruto's continued skepticism, he simply shrugged his shoulders and picked up his orange book from his hostler and began reading it. Here's the picture of a cat you're supposed to find, and here are the parameters on where he could be. He handed them the photo and map as he continued reading. Good luck. What are you going to do while we search? Sakura asked. I'll oversee you and the result of your team-building exercises, Kakashi said as he flipped another page of his book, not even lifting his head as he answered. We should check the closest location first, Sakura said, shooting her sensei a disgruntled look. Right? It's the old Senju compound, Sasuke said, accepting the current situation as it was. Fuck, how could I forget that? Naruto didn't want Sakura and Sasuke to go there now. Curiosity killed the cat. After all, wait, I'll try to sense him and pinpoint his location, he suggested instead. How can you sense it if you don't even know its signature? Sakura questioned. It was true. However, he answered his theory nonetheless. All I need is to sense the male animal, in this case, a cat, that's away from the humans within the village. We can begin the search that way. As the cat escaped, he should be away from the crowds. Or at least somewhere he would not be disturbed or easily found. 3. Fine. How far is your range? Sasuke asked this time. I can go with 5 kilometers for now. The range will expand as I grow. It was already strong as it was, allowing Naruto to detect various chakra signatures in the village, with one male having traces of chakra similar to his own in a way. It was one of the ANBUs that acted as his guardian when Kosuke was away. He didn't mention that to anyone yet, or ask the person in question anything. He figured that the old man must have known something about it, but kept it a secret for now. Sasuke looked at him strangely for a moment before nodding. Where should we start then? Naruto placed his finger on the ground and focused on his senses. After a minute or so he smiled and answered, Forest near the Nara clan's compound. A perfect place to hide and evade the intruders. A half-hour later. I can't believe that she actually was there, Sakura said as they walked towards the academy once more. It wasn't hard to find the cat with a sensor on their team. but catching it was a lot harder. But still, they managed to grab him. The cat really likes you, Sasuke-kun, Sakura said, watching the said animal peacefully sleeping in the Uchiha's arms. "HN. Are we doing another mission today, Kakashi-sensei?" Sakura asked again. Kakashi thought about it for a second. Maybe another one that requires teamwork? Sure, why not? They can work together on a mission, while he oversees them and read his book in the process. "You're finished already?" Sandaime Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen asked, lifting his head from a document he was previously reading. "The power of teamwork, Hokage-sama," Naruto said formally, but there was a small glint of laughter in his blue eyes. "I see," Sarutobi nodded. "Bring Rue-san in." One of the Hokage's assistants stood up and went to another room, calling the customer for the mission to come. A short woman, with short dark blue hair and a somewhat emotionless look, came inside, tugging the cat from Sasuke's arms, who scowled at such disrespect. "Why have you ran away from me, Nachan?" the woman asked as she started hugging her cat tightly and exiting the building after paying the successfully accomplished mission. "What's up with her?" Naruto asked while Kakashi went to ask for another mission. "I know her from my neighborhood. I heard she had that cat ever since her husband left her after finding out she cheated on him with a merchant from the land of lighting," Sakura whispered to him. He dodged kunai with that one, even if the wound would scar him forever. He gave no comment, only a curt nod. "You want another mission for your team, Kakashi?" they heard the Hokage ask their sensei. "Yes, Hokage-sama." "Let's see. You have." The Sandaime started listing available jobs. A week later. "What do you think Sensei will have us do today?" Sakura asked her teammates as they waited for Kakashi to show up. "More teamwork, probably," Sasuke blurted out. Content that her crush acknowledged her. Sakura continued with the flow. "Do you think he'll start teaching us any techniques soon?" "Probably," came the answer from Naruto, who was leaning on a nearby tree. He actually talked to the old man about this phenomenon. Apparently, there is a new training regimen for all of the standard forces of Konoha. Team building is essential right now. Jutsus will come later. Where would you two like to specialize in? Naruto sat up straight from the tree he was leaning on, scratching his back from the crumbs of the tree that slipped through his clothes. "I'd like to be an all-round shinobi, if that makes sense. Or where I can, that is, all except the medical ninjutsu." "Same as Naruto," Sasuke muttered. "What about you, Sakura?" "I don't know," she said. "Sadora-sensei said I have good chakra control, so I could go for genjutsu or medical ninjutsu. I'll probably go with one of those two." "It won't hurt to try both," Naruto advised her. "While the medical ninjutsu is useful, it will leave you lacking in the combat part. You could actually go with it and supplement it with genjutsu and taijutsu, maybe even some of bukijutsu." Sakura seemed to think about it. "I'll see with Kakashi-sensei and hear what he has to say." She nodded to herself. "What do you think, Sasuke-kun?" "I agree with Naruto," was the only reply from the Uchiha. Seeing as Kakashi was still absent, more so than usual, Naruto took out the Advanced Fuinjutsu manual from his holster and began reading it. "Fuinjutsu?" questioned Sakura. "I didn't know you were interested in that." "I'm still a beginner, but I'd like to be more proficient one day, if I ever want to learn the Flying Thunder God technique," went unsaid. "So how good are you with it?" Naruto never actually considered this. While Jiraiya praised him as a prodigy in the art, he did say he was still far from a master. It wasn't that irritating. He didn't bother learning much of it before. But as he was a genin now, there weren't many other things he should give most of his focus on. He mastered his two affinities to the fullest. All that was needed was to expand his already large repertoire of jutsus. "Hard to tell. I know how to create basic explosive tags and more advanced sealing scrolls, in addition to elemental traps and a few more that are useful in battle. I'd say I'm slightly better than the average shinobi. But as I haven't given much focus on Fuinjutsu until now, it's hard to tell." Sakura nodded and Kakashi arrived soon after that. "Sorry I'm late, but I had a meeting with Hokage-sama just beforehand," cutting Sakura off as she was about to complain. Naruto raised his eyebrow in curiosity and Kakashi addressed him next. He also told me that he needs to talk to you later on, regarding some shipment, Naruto. Naruto nodded. Jiraiya must have returned with his armor, or at least the request for money to be deposited for this investment. Right then, aside from the meeting, I visited one of the shinobi gear shops and got some things that should help you in your further training, Kakashi said, gaining the full attention of his students, especially Sasuke, who was ignoring him for the first part. How will you do that, sensei? Sakura asked. First, with this, Kakashi said and pulled out a small deck of papers, handing each of them one piece. Now watch. He channeled his chakra into the one he was holding, making it wrinkle. 4. What does that mean? Curious Sakura asked while Naruto and Sasuke watched in silence. That means that the lighting is my primary affinity, Kakashi answered. Although, at the same time I am capable of using all other 4 elements as well, due to the fact I trained those elements from scratch. But, as they are not my primary affinity, I can't use them that well. These papers can determine your elemental affinity, something that every person has. I see, was the response from Sakura. Now it's your turn, Kakashi said with an easy eye smile. Simply channel your chakra to the paper and the rest will do itself. Sakura went first, getting her paper crumble, indicating earth elemental affinity. Sasuke was second with his paper wrinkling, showing he had a strong affinity for lighting, something that surprised both Kakashi and Naruto, who thought that Uchihas were naturally inclined towards the fire. Congratulations, Sasuke. It seems you have a strong affinity for lighting. Though, judging by the strength of your fire techniques, I suspect that you have a strong and trained affinity for fire, too, complimented Kakashi. Sasuke grunted contently. It would explain why he had a hard time mastering the Grand Fireball Jutsu when he was a child, something that irked him to no end. At the same time, he was happy that he found the answer to the question he never actually asked. Naruto took the last turn, with his paper being cleanly sliced in half in a rather violent way and at the same time got completely wet. Both indicated a strong affinity for wind and water, which Kakashi pointed out to the 2 remaining students who were left wondering from the minor show. Naruto's paper shows that he has a strong affinity for both wind and water at the same time. Now before you ask, this means that he was born with the affinity for both elements, Kakashi explained. Furthermore, this is also common among bloodline-based shinobis or clans from other nations. Naruto nodded. He already knew about that, but what he didn't know about was the exact bloodline he had. He had a book about bloodline mutations, but the book only explained how certain advanced nature manipulations turned into bloodlines initially. Other villages certainly do have shinobis with bloodline, particularly Kirigakure. Naruto promised himself that one of these days he would try to combine his elements into a new one. If it was even possible to do so, that is. So does that mean that Naruto has a bloodline? Sakura asked. It can mean that, Sakura. Yes. But at the same time, many shinobis are born with 2 different elements, yet never show any signs of a bloodline mutation. The Sandaime Hokage-sama is a prime example of this. He was born with the affinity for fire and earth, yet has never been able to create a lava release, for example, but is able to use those elements in combination with each other, making him feared throughout the elemental nations and earning him a title of the professor, in addition to the god of shinobi. Kakashi finished his lecture. Naruto may have a bloodline, but he also may not. It is up to him to experiment and try and find out if he wants, that is. Once again, Naruto nodded. He would definitely do that. The Senju name was to resurface once again. While he wanted to do it with flying Raijin, it may not be possible to happen up to the Chunin exams. But he could make a name for himself at a later date anyway. On the other hand, it would be beneficial for Konoha to gain another bloodline. While they had a definite and certain bloodline in Hyuga's Byakugan and uncertain in Uchiha's Sharingan and Kurama clan's Ito Kekkei Genkai, it wouldn't hurt to have another one. Konoha prided itself in a hereditary talent of various clans that dwelled inside of it, unlike the other villages who possessed the various bloodlines in their own right, including some minor villages. As the old saying regarding the bloodlines went, Kirigakure has, Kanahagakure preserves, Sunagakure watches, Iwagakure explores, and Kumogakure takes. 5. Now, Kakashi-sensei woke him from his musings with his announcement. Sasuke, Naruto. You two will, for the duration of my tutoring practice, mostly with elemental manipulation and ninjutsu, respectively. Sakura. While I'm proud of you for stepping up with your training, he said, making the pink-haired girl smile. You would do better with genjutsu or medical ninjutsu supplemented with taijutsu. With your current chakra reserves, it would suit you better as well as be more useful, as earth element takes a lot of chakra, which could leave you vulnerable to the attacks if the fight is prolonged. I understand, Kakashi-sensei, she said with confidence. Good. Now let's warm up a bit and start with the first steps of your individual training. Kakashi told them. Sakura and Sasuke at least needed to go with the first steps. He's yet to figure out what to do with Naruto. Maybe he could start learning a third element as he studies Fuinjutsu. He needed to step up with his own training too. Orochimaru was making moves lately, possibly creating a new village of his own. That didn't bode well. The Sandaime told that bit of information that he got from Jiraiya only to a selected group of Jonins, in order to give Orochimaru a sense of security. The Snake Sannin would no doubt change whatever plans he had if the information that Konoha knew about his movements was revealed. They're growing up, Kakashi thought as he looked at his students warming up. If he wanted to honor his deceased teammates, he should focus on developing his own team, if anything not to become like his own dead. Somewhere in the land of rice paddies. This is wrong. Walking throughout the greenery of his homeland, one Endo Genyumaru 6 wondered why many of his countrymen considered this as a good thing for their homeland. His clan elder deemed that serving the rogue Konoha Sannin would be a good thing for the clan and the people of the country as a whole. But Genyumaru had his doubts. He wouldn't be a rogue shinobi if he was good. When Orochimaru came to their disgraced country, using their defeat in the war against the land of hot water, it was a too tempting opportunity to pass. Uniting the rather rival, but in between peaceful clans was no easy task for the individual shinobis of their country to do. But Orochimaru held good connections with many of them, using that as a tool to finally unite them. They passed an opportunity to create their own hidden village back when everyone else did. Maybe another chance would not come to pass. And to kick their pride, even more, a Rouge leadership reject of Konoha used them for the dishonorable tasks such as this one. Don't slack off, was the order the blue-haired bitch directed towards the column of children that he was guarding on their way to one of Orochimaru's concentration camps. One child had collapsed, prompting the woman to slap him with a whip into the willingness to walk further. What will is there when his family is dead? The child stood up and joined back to the group, whimpering and shedding tears as he did. The test subjects. The future test subjects, enslaved children from the few villages on the borders of the land of iron. The blue-haired bitch Guren appeared before him, while the other 12 shinobis of the Otogekyure guarded the column of slaves while they walked by the narrow cliffs in one of many hills of his country. They finished the last raid on those villages. Orochimaru was smart enough not to use the children of the land of rice paddies, but in order to repay his generosity, they had to perform these types of missions for him. Among other things, Genyumaru thought that Orochimaru probably wanted to use many of them for his experiments, but even he alone would not fare well against all the clans of the newly formed village of Otogekyure. Disgraceful. What's up with you, Genyumaru? Guren asked him, seeing him frown. Nothing, just tired from having no rest. That's all. PFF. It seems like you and your countrymen aren't that tough as you wanted to believe. She taunted him, but he ignored her provocations. How will an enslaving bunch of children help the Otogekyure prosper? He asked her back.